there will be no real non-controlled currency in the world.
We're coming for you, banks.
It's an exciting time to be involved in Bitcoin Cash at the moment.
During that whole war of Lightning versus big blocks, like, were we the bad guys? Were we the ones that weren't listening?
Fundamentally, we believe in markets, transparency, and tokenization.
Come on, you gotta come stronger than that, you know, like...
Hello and welcome back to the Bitcoin Cash podcast, following Bitcoin Cash on its rise to global reserve currency. This is episode number 94, a fifth of gaming and drama fest featuring David Shattuck. Today is Sunday, the 8th of October, 2023. I'm your host, Jeremy. Jet is doing the producing, same as always. And this week, we are going to get into some drama. Last week, we had emergent reasons with the deep dives, the technicals. But, you know, on this show, we like to mix it up. Every episode's a little bit different. So for those wondering what happened with Juan Galt, what's going on there? We've got a bunch of other, we've got Litecoin drama, we got BSV drama. It's just like the drama central. So you can hang on for the second half of the episode and we will get into all of that. But our guest today is the creator of a fifth of gaming that we're going to be hearing about, and a very dedicated Bitcoin casher. David, welcome to the podcast. How'd you get into Bitcoin?
Yeah, thanks so much. It is a delight to be here. Big fan of the show. This is very much a long-time listener, first-time caller situation. So yeah, super jazzed to be here. My Bitcoin backstory has a little bit of its own backstory, which I'll share if that's all right. If you go back to 2005 to 2012, I was really hardcore into the world of Warcraft, like really hardcore. There was a time during my illustrious career when I was one of the most powerful restoration druids in North America. Like, yeah, it's hardcore stuff. So, you know, I was the founder and officer in an elite World of Warcraft raiding guild. And by the way, quick shout out, Eminent of Crushridge. You guys are awesome. So one of the problems that endgame World of Warcraft guilds face is the loot distribution problem. So one of my responsibilities as an officer in Eminent was as the loot officer. So what is the loot officer? But by the way, I promise this is going somewhere. This story is going to end with Bitcoin, I promise. So for the benefit of any of your listeners who are not familiar with old school World of Warcraft endgame raiding, you and 39 of your closest friends would spend many months working your way towards understanding, powering up, and eventually defeating giant fire-breathing dragons, molten fire lords, whatever. And your reward for this enormous effort would be 3 pieces of gear. So 3 powerful pieces of gear, but still you've got 3 prizes that 40 people have worked to earn. So the question is, okay, who gets these amazing epics? So every World of Warcraft guild faced this fundamental problem and used a variety of solutions. One of the categories of solutions to solve this problem was what was called DKP systems. So DKP stands for Dragon Kill Points. The basic premise is the guild creates its own currency, and the unit of currency is a DKP. The guild officers issue this currency as reward for, you know, completing tasks or showing up on time or whatever. And then the members of the guild can spend this currency on pieces of gear. So that's the basic idea. So I implemented one of these systems as a loot officer of Eminent. And, you know, I started out with a set of rules for this system, and inevitably problems came up. And I learned lessons from these problems and iterated on the design of this little system that I had built. So, and I got to say, I learned more about like the mechanics of money and market dynamics and supply and demand and incentive structures and all of that stuff. I learned more about that running this imaginary economy in a video game than I learned getting a 4-year business degree in undergrad. Like this was a defining moment in my life, was running this system. So I eventually reached a point after I have iterated all these times where I was really happy with the state of this system, and I wanted to codify it into a mod. So this is actually how I began my career as a software engineer. Was I built a mod for the World of Warcraft to implement this DKP economy for any other guilds that wanted to use it. And the mod met with some good success. It was downloaded thousands of times, and I was really happy with that. But this was important in like my foundational understanding of, the way money works. Fun fact, fun technical aside for the designing of this mod. I ran into a problem while I was trying to think about how I was going to store the information that this mod needed to keep track of. How do you keep track of everyone's current balance? So everyone who's running the mod has a copy of the data. If I just keep everyone's current balance, how do I know which version is the most up to date? Oh, I know what I'll do. Instead of storing the balances, I will store the transactions. I will store a ledger, a decentralized ledger of transactions for these DKP events that have happened. And I will sequential them. I'll have unique sequential identifiers so I know what order the transaction happened in. Oh, and I know what else I'll do. If someone is offline when transaction happens, when they come back online, the other nodes will communicate and they'll share the updated transactions and stuff. So, fun aside, later when I was reading the Bitcoin white paper, I was like, this Satoshi Nakamoto fellow stole my idea.
You're trying to play down that you're Satoshi so you don't get assassinated right after this. It's great to have you on the show, by the way.
Yeah, surprise reveal, episode 94, Bitcoin Cash podcast, Satoshi Nakamoto. Yeah, so to be clear, to be fair, Satoshi had the idea several years before I did, and that particular thing didn't originate with him. But still, if I've had a couple, I will sometimes like to imagine that, I would have invented Bitcoin if I had just, been born in the right time and place. So anyway, fast forward to Thanksgiving of 2013. I am in Rapid City, South Dakota, visiting my parents, for the holiday. And as a matter of general policy, I don't watch the news because I don't like being lied to. But you know how boomers are. My parents had Fox News in the background all the time. It was just always on as kind of background audio. And one day my ears perked up because the Fox News anchors were going on about this thing Bitcoin. And the reason they were freaking out about it is because the price of a single Bitcoin had exceeded $1,000 for the first time. And they were losing their minds about that.
Yes.
And so I said, what the heck is Bitcoin? I had a glance at it and it's like, oh, it's money in a computer. And I said, hello, copy paste. I just destroyed your whole system. It's nonsense. But at the time, I was working my way through a master's degree in computer science with an emphasis on information systems. So in those days, I had that unique combination of smug arrogance and blissful ignorance that is unique to grad students. So I approached the Bitcoin white paper with this idea of I'm about to wreck this man's whole career. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to find the critical problem, and it's going to be a breeze. So I read the white paper. And quick aside, any of your listeners, if you have not read the Bitcoin white paper, please read it. It's 7 pages long. Yeah, very
9 pages. 9 pages.
Yeah.
But 1 page of references, 8 pages, and 20 pictures.
Yeah, and it's technical, but it's not overwhelming. It's very approachable, very consumable. And so I'm reading this white paper, and I had this moment. I was like, oh, I see. Okay, yes, and it was. I was blown away, and boy, I fell down the rabbit hole. Like several days, I was absolutely consumed by this. I was reading everything I could find. I was watching all the Andreas Antonopoulos videos I could get my hands on. This was before he suddenly and completely and mysteriously changed his narrative to, well, let's not get into that. So yeah, I within a week I was like, this is incredible. This is one of the most important creations of computer science in the last 50 years. I believe it's going to change the world in meaningful ways. I, by this point, had realized that the problems that I had seen in my little DKP economy also existed in the real world on a grand scale, and that those problems were causing pain and suffering for real people in real ways. And so when I saw Bitcoin, I was like, this is a revolution. This is going to change the world. I want to be a part of it. I want to contribute to it. And so I've been, kind of doing my best in that regard ever since then. So I bought my first ever Bitcoin from Coinbase in December of 2013. My first ever non-custodial wallet was Armory. That's real old
solid.
From the good old days. I did a tiny bit of mining using NiceHash. I participated in a very tiny way in the fight against the Blockstream takeover of the Bitcoin project. But yeah, so I have been around for a while and have been kind of watching the space develop, and it has been a journey, and that is my Bitcoin origin story.
It's very, very cool. So I got to ask you first about the little economy that you were running with the in-game items there. Can you just give us a bit more detail on that? Like, did you have problems with guild members trying to fraud? Did it work straight away? Did it inflate too much? What's going on?
No, that's a good question. So the kinds of problems that I was running into were like the lessons that I was learning were things like, hey, you can't expand the money supply without limit because that devalues the previously issued currencies, the previously issued units of currency. I learned lessons like you cannot put the power of the printer into the hand of any person, even the most benevolent overseer is going to subconsciously tend towards awarding himself and his friends, in an unfair way. I learned things like there is no formula, there's no equation or algorithm that I can create where I can plug in the correct variables to determine the correct value of a given piece of gear. Like it has to be like price discovery has to be the result of free participants in a fair market. That's the only way to determine how much something should cost. And so these were problems that I ran into in the form of like, hey, we're disenchanting a whole bunch of valuable gear because the price is not correct. And then of course, you guys are obviously familiar with the problems inflation causes. Like I saw those problems manifest in this tiny microeconomy and figured out ways of fixing them. And that was kind of what shaped my understanding of money.
I'm curious, can you explain not just like the things that you discovered, but like the thing about not being able to come up with an algorithm and that the price discovery has to happen organically? Can you explain why and how you came to that conclusion?
Yeah, so I knew kind of intuitively that there were some pieces of gear that were much more valuable than others. And I thought to myself, okay, I can't just have here's how much a piece of gear costs and everything's 5 units or whatever. So I said, all right, well, I should be able to say, okay, this piece of gear can be used by multiple classes. This piece of gear is from a current tier. This piece of gear is from a more difficult boss, like that kind of thing. And I tried to have a formula that where I could plug in these coefficients and it would spit out a number. And I could say to the guild, okay, this is how much this piece of gear costs. But unfortunately, that can be very wrong in both directions. Like I can come up with a number that's way too high, in which case, yeah, people want it, but they don't want to spend that money. So basically just throw it in the bin and just doesn't help anybody. Or the price can be too low and a whole bunch of people want to buy it. And, it's a different category of problem. Okay, who gets priority in spending not enough to buy this piece of gear? So what I ended up doing is implementing a Victory auction model, sort of a one-round silent bid system where so everyone sends in how much they're willing to spend privately, and the value of the gear is set to whatever the second highest bid was. So person 1 bids 100, person 2 bids 80, everyone else bids lower than that. Person 1 wins the the auction, but he pays whatever the second person bid. Like, it's just a quick and dirty way of finding in a single round of silent bidding, what is the market at large willing to pay for this thing? And that worked out really well.
Okay. And so then you had, like you said, you made this mod for your guild. So you said 40 people go on a raid, and I assume you have a few more in the guild, right? Because somebody's like on holiday. I know some people are hardcore, right? But some people are on holiday or sick or whatever, right? Yeah. So you have, I don't know, what, like 100 people in this guild, something like that, who are using your currency?
It varied wildly. Like at one point, Blizzard switched from 40-man raids to 25-man raids. So like size of the raids changed, the size of the guilds changed. But yeah, rough estimate would be, let's say 60 or 70 people in a guild.
Okay. And then do you have guilds trading amongst each other too? Because this internal economy you had going for these 60 people, that obviously then would bleed over. I don't know if people switch guilds or whatever, or they want to change their gear from one person to another, or another guild can't do this, boss, so you just sell them your one because you were better than them. Like, does that happen?
So World of Warcraft had its own kind of universal currency, which was just gold coins, like imaginary gold coins. The DKP mods, the DKP systems that guilds would spin up were unique to that guild. Like, outside of that guild, this currency just doesn't exist at all. So yeah, this really was a microeconomy of just me and my guild mates.
But there was never any free market that then developed there with people in like the, I don't know, can you buy your way into a guild or sell out of a guild somehow?
So yeah, one other important component about endgame World of Warcraft raiding is like the gear that would drop had this attribute called soulbound. So it was not possible to trade most pieces of gear. In order to get this gear, you'd have to be present in the raid when the boss was defeated. We obviously we had a kind of steady stream of recruits that were coming in, like they wanted to join the guild, and we were like trying them out and stuff. And the mod accounted for that. Like, it would award them units of currency for their participation, even if they weren't in the guild. So strictly speaking, the guild wasn't the boundary. Like, I could award units of this currency to people who were not officially in the guild, but it didn't have any like they couldn't take those currencies and go to some other guild on the server and spend it there, so to speak.
Yeah, well, not that's what I'm saying. Maybe it just never sort of developed to that point. But if this experiment carried on long enough, sooner or later it would gain a market price against the internal currency. Or maybe there just wasn't enough integration. Like, maybe, I know this is all happening from scattered mods and people are addicted to games and whatever, right? But there's nobody who's sitting there thinking like, you know what, let's just turn this into like a free floating stock market. Or it didn't get to that stage then, it sounds like.
Yeah, so it was possible in the mod to give and like trade DKP. Like, I had made that into a function, and there was one point when someone traded some Eminence DKP for something. I don't remember what it was. It was like a month on the guild forums or something. And I made this cheeky comment in our guild chat that was like, "Oh, hey, there's now a market price for Eminence DKP units, and at this exchange rate for this month of subscription, whatever, like the Eminence DKP economy is worth like $15 now." So like, I basically created money out of nothing. And someone came in and ruined my praise. Like, actually, you spent many hundreds of hours building this. This is not a very good return on investment.
But it's a fascinating thing, right? Because there's the book by Peter Schiff, What an Economy. What's it called? What an Economy Is, How an Economy Grows and Why It Crashes. And he starts by explaining this like theoretical concepts of, if you have a guy on an island and he's catching fish and he catches one fish a day and blah, 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 and all these things that you can use to explain to people about capital accumulation and about liquidity and about efficient markets and all that stuff. There's a lot of this stuff that's kind of theoretical, and that's one of the nice things about cryptocurrency. And like you're saying with this in-game currency, similarly, is once people can get hands-on experience of being like the Federal Reserve or the Reserve Bank, being able to tweak the numbers and see it work or blow up or something in real time. Economics is in some ways sort of a branch of anthropology, right? So you learn a lot about people as much as you learn about money in running these kind of systems. Did you have people trying to cheat? Did you have
so
in your guild?
So we had people that would try to collude. Like there would be some piece of gear that like, okay, only mages really can use this staff of burnination or whatever it is. And so they would say, okay, what we're going to do is, no one will bid, and just we'll take turns getting this thing, and we'll all bid, one DKP, one at a time. And then we all will have more DKP when something that's shared among multiple classes drops. And, people said to me like, oh, this could be a problem. And I kind of shrugged. I was like, I don't think this is really going to be a problem. And I believe I was vindicated in that opinion, because it's a game of chicken. Like, okay, there's, between the mages, the warlocks, and the priests, like somebody is going to throw in just like, here's 10 DKP, whatever, maybe I'll get it. And it just blows up the whole scam. And so then, okay, well, let's collude a little bit higher and let's try 20. And it's like, I don't want to be bothered trying to police that. And, I don't think it's a serious problem anyways. And I believe it wasn't. But yeah, there were edge cases that were bizarre. Like there were some people in the guild that just would not spend DKP for anything. They were like hoarding it. And, people would say like, oh, this person now has like 20% of the guild's entire money supply. And, we got to do something. I was like, so what? We've got the other 80% as part of the active economy. And it's all just floating value of the currency. If fewer and fewer coins are in play, then their relative value will just go up and up. And if he eventually starts spending money, then again, so what? So the prices will start coming back down. Like it's not that big of a deal. So yeah, markets, and I believe this is true in real life, tend to be self-correcting in a long enough time scale, assuming there's not outright corruption. And saw that in the kind of the small economy as well.
Wow, yeah, okay. It's truly interesting. And the other thing I wanted to ask you about was the whole block size war. Obviously, everybody who's been on the show who was involved from the early days and had some involvement in that, it's always important for new adopters to get fresh perspectives, because it's one of the most controversial, disputed moments in crypto history, and probably forever will be, right?
Probably.
So it's always nice to hear fresh on the ground takes of what that was like, what was involved, how were you involved?
So I was coming? One of the I was actively reading the Bitcoin subreddit in those days. I was there every day. I still remember the day when the Thamos account announced the aggressive censorship and propaganda campaign. I was there. But yeah, I was careful to emphasize I contributed in a very small way to the fight against Blockstream, but it is something that I am a little bit proud of, so I'm happy to share it. So one of the things that was happening in those days is there was an ongoing conversation about, okay, probably we need to raise the block size. How much should we raise it by? And there were an assortment of proposals like, oh, we should, like Gavin Andresen said, let's do 30 megabytes. And someone else said like, well, maybe we should do 8. And people were like, let's do 2, then 4, then 8. And what has all these different variations of these proposals. And some of them had enough kind of enthusiastic support behind them that there were competing node reference implementations, like competing Bitcoin node clients. And one of them that generated a decent amount of buzz was called BitcoinXT. So this client had its own subreddit that's still up today. And their goal was, hey, we want to become the new primary reference client. And of course, the way to do that is to attract miners. So one of the things that I did in those days is I wrote a step-by-step, 10 tasks to complete to rent hashing power from this service called NiceHash using Bitcoin, and point this hashing power towards pools that were explicitly mining Bitcoin XT blocks to show support, for this change. I put this on the Bitcoin XT subreddit, and there was a user called Hello Bitcoin World. That was his Reddit name. He took this tutorial and really ran with it. He built out a publicly funded, using Bitcoin pool, basically, that took any coins that you sent to this given address, rented hashing power from NiceHash, pointed it at Bitcoin XT blocks, and then any profits, any like mining rewards that came back would immediately be reinvested. And this pool that he spun up mined some of the first ever non-core Bitcoin blocks at, Bitcoin XT blocks. You can go back to those days and they're still there. So yeah, that was exciting. Obviously, like there were many tactics that were used to suppress this change. So there was the denial of service attacks, there was character assassinations, there was the censorship on all the major forums. So it ended up not working out. But I was glad to have, tried, like done something and stuff. So that was cool.
Well, it's just one of the things that I think about in hindsight is like with Bitcoin XT, it did actually, there was also Bitcoin Unlimited, and I think there was also Bitcoin Classic maybe as well. But Bitcoin XT was the one that Mike Hearn and Gavin were doing, right? So that was the one that was getting like quite a lot of traction. And the fun fact for listeners of the show, if you look in the Changing the Game video clip, there's a bit where it says, you got to remember the name, and there's the Bitcoin XT little logo pops up there. So that's a nice Easter egg for the OGs.
Quick aside, big fan of that Fort Minor cover that you did. There was a moment like a year ago when I was first thinking about Bitcoin Cash integration at Fifth of Gaming, and I started looking around, and I was annoyed, like, why isn't there just a library that I can plug in to do this? Like, it should exist. And that, it's basically contemporary poetry, modern philosophy. Like, how does it go? I'm not asking for praise. I'm not begging for help. If something needs to be done, I'll fucking do it myself. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do that. And here we are.
Exactly. It's one of the fastest ways to, well, because it's in the reason that I do this music comes from a few things, but one of the things was when I was starting the show, or just before, I was in Regent's Park in London, right? And I went there and I was sick. It's a great place, by the way, especially in the summertime in London. I was walking around, I was sitting on the grass there, and I was thinking, look, if we're going to win, if we're going to get Bitcoin Cash to global reserve currency, we're going to need to get 7 billion people on board, right? How do you get a message to 7 billion people? There's very few ways to actually do that. Obviously, you don't need to get all 7 billion. You get a large enough chunk. Economics does the rest, right? But I was thinking about like what has got a message to 7 billion people? Like even Joe Rogan can't do that. He's got like 10 million listeners an episode. If he shills something a bunch, maybe he can hit 20 or 50 million people. But John Lennon, Let It Be, he's done it. He's done it, So that was kind of where I was like, we got to start making some music. And not that I necessarily am going to be the one to produce the #1 Billboard BCH hit, but somebody is going to do it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Lil Windex has that on lockdown.
I don't know. It's a good song, but he's not. He only just had his one shot. He's not going back. He's not hustling to make another one. So
you can have the #1 Bitcoin Cash album he's got at the moment, and on it will be the #1, the new top Bitcoin Cash song.
Exactly. But anyway, that's all a bit aside from the point of view of the clients. Yeah, it was all a pretty grassroots effort. That's what this whole Bitcoin thing is, and that's what I think is important for people to understand in retrospect, is that like the big blockers lost, but it kind of makes sense that we lost in hindsight, really, because a divide and conquer strategy is going to be so effective against an under-resourced organic grassroots movement that is not prepared for this kind of attack. How would we know? Like, people obviously were conspiracy, they were a bit paranoid, and they knew that we're doing something genuinely dangerous to the state. But for the same reason, a lot of people are still only peripherally involved. Like, speaking for myself, certainly, and other people, like, you didn't want to be all guns blazing on this because you could end up in jail, which a few people have, right?
At the time, I had a sort of like a mindset of inevitability to this Bitcoin thing. Like, I understood from a technical standpoint, like, there are no doors anywhere in the world that the government can kick in. There's no one specifically they can murder to shut this down. Like, I think it's just gonna happen. And okay, there's this conversation that's happening where these really smart people are talking about block size, but I'm sure they'll get it sorted out, and I don't need to do anything about it. But looking back, I believe I was wrong about that. Yeah, I was incorrect about that. I assumed that it would just work itself out, but part of the misunderstanding that I think a lot of people had was they believed that everyone participating in the debate, participating in the conversation, were acting in good faith. Like that these were good technical reasons to have extremely conservative scaling adjustments. And I'm convinced today that no, their goal from the beginning was, okay, we need to prevent at all costs this system from being used as peer-to-peer electronic cash. One of the ways of doing that is to sow confusion and waste time and all that stuff.
Yeah. Creating delay and division was enough, like to be on the winning side. From our point of view, we have to make it work. But to be on the winning side from the CBDC banking system side, all you need to do is just create inevitable delay. Peter Todd is obviously the absolute master at this. So if you want to get some lessons in how to do that, just look into any debate or any discussion he has ever been in.
I do believe there is a certain inevitability to CBDCs that the world needs to make itself aware of. But yeah, Bitcoin Cash does not have that same luxury. We don't have the most powerful people in the world pushing for us. We're going to have to do it ourselves.
Yes. And so skipping forward a little bit, then getting past all that, maybe just give me a bit of flavor of your involvement in the BCH community past that time, sort of, and until now. Like, were you involved maybe in the BSV stuff or the eCash stuff, or even just recently? And what's your take on where the community is at these days?
So I was certainly paying close attention during the BSV, era, the start of it. I still remember the morning. The Squidward meme template where he's like sleeping and then the next panel his eyes are instantly open and bloodshot. Like, I had that experience the day like I woke up and I'm like glancing at my phone and I see that Gavin Andresen has like formally announced that he believes that Craig Wright is Satoshi. Like, I was freaking out. Like he's going to sign a message with Satoshi's keys, and so that was. I mean, obviously, it's been a clown show since then, but yeah, I have been around for all that. I remember
that was before the BCH split, though, right?
Yeah, that was a long time ago. Yeah, he's been around for a minute. So yeah, I have been following the drama. I mean, it's a peripheral thing. Like, I don't. And I, to be clear, I'm super excited about talking about it today. But generally speaking, over the last 5 years or whatever, I haven't really cared what Craig Wright and BSV are doing. Like, I don't pay close attention to scams once I know they're scams. I've been watching that. I was watching, of course, when the Bitcoin ABC thing happened and kind of eCash split off from that. So as far as where the community is, I think it's in a really good place. You said something about a month ago that I was really vibing with, which was concerning like the people who are in the BitCash community today. There are a lot of people who are involved in a lot of crypto projects because of, number go up ideology. Either it has been going up or they believe it is going up very soon. That is not really the case in Bitcoin Cash. So one of the things that you said was, when you look like to your left and your right in the Bitcoin Cash space, you know that you're looking at someone that's really serious about being here. They're not here for the memes. They're not here for number go up. They believe in this technology and they are excited to see what happens next. So in that regard, every time I listen to the Bitcoin Cash podcast, for example, I'm excited to see, what new guest is on this time and what are they working on? And I love just hearing these little stories of things that people are doing elsewhere in the world. Another thing that you have said on several occasions is like, anyone can anywhere contribute to this. Just your little local neighborhood, have a meetup or write some, bit of software, make an app or whatever. So, I think it's in a good place. We have had challenges, certainly, over the last 5 years. I believe that we are in a pretty stable place, and I'm really looking forward to next year. Like, I think the happening is going to be awesome. I'm obviously excited to see where Fit the Gaming is going to go. But yeah, and then as far as my own contributions, as I mentioned earlier, I'm by trade a software engineer, and one of the goals that I set for myself, a year ago or whatever, was to integrate like native on-chain Bitcoin Cash transactions into my little side project with the gaming. And that sent me down a path of, okay, I want to build an open source library for this so that anyone can plug in to any .NET application, and with a couple of lines of code, even if they don't understand how Bitcoin works, they don't know anything about UTXOs, they don't know about blockchains or transaction fees, nothing, they don't know anything about anything. They can write a few lines of code and they're creating valid Bitcoin Cash wallets. They can send and receive money, no problem. So the end result of that effort was the BitcoinCashClient, which I published about 6 or 7 months ago. And it's got a few thousand downloads, and there's YouTube tutorials and stuff. And this has been a passion of mine in the background, thinking about, so a little bit of a side tangent, if that's all right. Like when people talk about Bitcoin Cash adoption, the tendency is to focus on kind of merchant adoption. And don't get me wrong, I love that. I love Bitcoin Jason's videos. I love watching like Sunny going around to all these places and like meeting people for the first time, and within 5 minutes they're accepting Bitcoin Cash. All fantastic. But I believe there's another aspect to adoption that would be good to think about and talk about more, and that is this idea of programmable money. Like, if this is going to be a thing, like a large scale thing, corporations, big corporations, are going to need to be able to write into their, like integrate into their applications, their large enterprise scale applications, ways to interact with this system, like talk directly to the blockchain, read from it, broadcast transactions, all that stuff. And so there is a site called developers.cash, which is a fantastic resource for any programmers who want to explore and invest time into this concept of programmable money. But because tools like this exist, and I'm very proud to have contributed to that, like BitcoinCashClient is now featured on that site. Anyone who wants to contribute to this can do that. They can just pop in and start writing code. This is, like, again, coming back to this concept of programmable money. Whatever arbitrary business logic you want to encode, you can do that now. When we think of Bitcoin Cash transactions, a lot of times it's like sending an email, like put in the address, type in the amount, slide to send, boom. But you can have transactions triggered from any event that can trigger code execution in whatever environment that you're working in. And I would love to see more software engineers who are passionate about this technology exploring that. Like, how can I introduce these payments into my my side project that I do in my free time, kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I think we are going to be seeing more and more of that, right? Because as it cuts to that, what we're talking about with anybody can contribute anywhere, and that's a very powerful but hard to grasp idea. And like you said, you were sort of paying attention and watching the community, and I was too, during those periods where it's a bit volatile. So there's often a lot of people who are sort of on the sidelines. They've got an eye on it. They kind of know what's going on, but they're not really going to jump in if they can see that it's a bit of a mess. People are arguing, there's just flame wars and everybody's upset. And you don't think, wait, let me just dedicate 1.5 years of my life to making some new project, right? You're just going to steer clear. But we're kind of shot of that now. And you have people building up like you're doing with this .NET thing. And there's obviously the JavaScript stuff is all being built up. So that then when people come along, not only do they say, oh, wow, the community's in a good place, but they're also like, oh, I don't have to start from sticks and stones. The foundations are already here. And then they can get onto the fun stuff a lot faster. And then that builds up enthusiasm and hype,
100%. Right? And that's the nature of computing, right? It's all just layers of abstraction that are built on top of them. Like, I don't know anything about machine language or like that super low level stuff. I work in a very specific layer. And the idea with BitcoinCashClient, like you said, is I want to build something that abstracts away all of the complexity. Like, you don't have to worry about hashing or encryption or any of that stuff. Like, we handle that. And you just use these simple tools that I built, and everything below that is just covered. And again, the idea is just open the door. Anyone who wants to, anyone who's curious to play with this, like, plug it in, it's a tutorial, and you're off and running.
So Jet said, why .NET? Is that just because that's what you have experience in?
Yeah, so that's my happy place, .NET. I have been working just all my like professional careers, VB.NET, C#. That's my happy place. And the other thing, it's like there wasn't one for this. There wasn't a library for C#. So I thought, makes sense to do it there.
Yeah, definitely. Well, it's good that we have you plugging away at it because I hate all of that stuff.
Yeah, no, every engineer has their favorite development stack, and the dream state is every dev stack you can think of, all the major ones, has a flavor of this. We've got one for Python, we've got one for PHP, we've got C#, like JavaScript. All the ones have their own. Just plug this in, and you can do native Bitcoin Cash stuff. That's the dream state.
Exactly. And then at the network layer, it all obviously interoperates because that's the
right.
whole point of it, right? So I think we are getting there, but those projects, they do really take time to cook, and you need to get passionate people in the community. You need to be organically attracting them for them to then invest their time and effort to build that. So let's get on to a fifth of gaming then. So this is your big project, which you've been working on for quite a while, and has now been, I did some alpha testing with you and some other people. It's now in, I guess, open beta that anybody can try. But just walk us through from the very beginning. What is it, and why this?
Yeah, so from the very beginning, I started working on a fifth of gaming back in 2018. So this has been a long-running project. Originally, the problem that I was trying to solve was, my friends and I, my college friends, my work colleagues, with our increasingly busy lives, our increasingly complicated lives, we're struggling to find time to play games together, play multiplayer games together. So the goal of this project was to handle all of the complexity of getting everyone together for game night in a sort of automated way. Like, it handles scheduling the event, it sends out email reminders, it's got a kind of voting, like a game nomination and voting system built into it, so the group can, without any centralized coordination, pick a game that much of the guild would enjoy. Now, originally this was just an Excel spreadsheet, but eventually I built it into just a web app that we could use. And with respect to the overarching problem that I was originally trying to solve, it has done very well for itself. Like, me and my little group over these last 5 years have done like 300 plus game night sessions with this thing. And it has been, and that includes, by the way, 3 honest to goodness LAN parties, like everyone bringing their tower and their monitors and playing together. So that's been a blast. But fast forward to earlier this year, you guys did an episode where your guest was B Chad from Bitcoin Cash TV.
He's just joined the chat, by the way.
Oh, hey, cool. Shout out, Chad. Shout out to you, Chad. Good to see you. So, during this episode, you guys were talking about how great of a crossover there is, or there should be, between kind of cryptocurrency and gaming. And of course, I'm passionate about both of those two things, so my ears perked right up. And during the course of that episode, you guys saying like, "Oh man, it'd be super cool to do like a Bitcoin Cash community StarCraft event of some kind, or just get together and hang out and play StarCraft." And I got to thinking to myself, I wonder if a fifth of gaming would be a useful tool for this. Like, it's got Bitcoin Cash integration for just the little subscription component, so a very minor. It had Bitcoin Cash in it, but it could be a way to kind of organize this. And so I reached out in Twitter DMs to both of you, Jeremy and also to Chad, saying, "Hey, I've got this fifth of gaming thing. You guys want to use it? We could put together a StarCraft 2 thing." And I could tell, Jeremy, that you were jazzed about this. Like, your longtime watchers will know when you get excited about something, your eyes will light up, and it's this great. We were just in DMs, but I could tell that you were jazzed about this. But I could also tell that from the things that you were saying, that I had not explained correctly what this was. So you were excited about, like, oh yeah, competition and like lifetime rankings and all this stuff. And I was so disappointed that I had to kind of burst your bubble and like, that's not actually what it does. It's really just a scheduling thing. And so that conversation kind of fizzled out a little bit. But I went back kind of into my own thoughts, and I said to myself, why isn't there a competitive aspect to Fifth of Gaming? Like, that seems like it would be awesome. And at the time, I had just, like, within a month or two previous, released the first version of the Bitcoin Cash client. So I said, I could build an integration to the Challenge API, which is like a tournament bracket engine site. I have the tools already to do Bitcoin Cash integration because I made them myself. Why don't I just put these together, and we're gonna have video game tournaments, multiplayer video game tournaments, where the buy-in is paid with Bitcoin Cash and all the payouts are with Bitcoin Cash. Like, it would be fully autonomous. No one has to be in charge of it. These tournaments will just run. Anyone who wants to can spend Bitcoin Cash, like send some money to the tournament wallet to register, and all the payouts will be with this. Because it's all native, even though no one's in charge, anyone who wants to can go verify that these payouts happen, that everyone's getting paid in the right way, and all the records are there on the site. And so, yeah, once I had that thought, I started, knocking out one feature at a time as I had time. And this has been kind of a very, like, I'm working by myself in my dungeon for like 5 months. And just recently, like, I guess it's been about 5 weeks now, kind of shared it with the world. Like, hey, here's this thing that I've been working on. And that was kind of the launch of the alpha test. So that's the history of a Fifth of Gaming up to today.
Yeah. And so with the alpha test and the beta rollout, just give specific example of how this has worked so far.
Sure. Yeah. So I obviously did some like basic internal testing myself. I'm just running tournaments with my imaginary usernames and stuff. But to really get a feel for how this is going to work, we wanted to have a big splashy event where like real actual people were coming and trying this out. So we had a very generous donation from a corporate sponsor, Digital to DNA. So they put $750 in a tournament wallet for a Magic the Gathering event. And so we had this event on September 22nd. This was kind of the official launch of the public beta. And we were reaching out to everyone, like the Magic community, the Bitcoin Cash community, saying, hey, come play in this thing and try it out with us. This is at the end of a kind of smaller scale closed alpha test where it was just like, friends and family. Jeremy, I reached out to you because I know you'd be interested, and B-Chad came as well. And that was like our first ever just regular, like, other people trying it out. And that went really well, which was what gave us the confidence to do the large scale beta test. And boy, that went great. Like, not only was it a blast to have, and we had 28 people come, so it was 28 people register, and most of them showed up. So it was a great event in terms of turnout. It was a lot of fun. The progress through the bracket happened in the semi-autonomous way that I was hoping it would. And at the end, all of the payouts were broadcast to the people, and it was, it certainly had its glitches, as I expected it would. This is a very young application, so still wrinkles to work out. But overall, we were really happy with how it worked.
Yeah, so we're playing Magic Arena. So for anybody who doesn't know, there's the card game Magic the Gathering, and they have a virtual, computer game version of that called Magic Arena, which is actually probably a pretty safe bet because the company, Wizards, is making plenty of money, and then also they're increasingly looking to sort of phase out cardboard gaming, which is a bit of a shame, and I have my own opinions on that. But that's another time we'll have to do. We've already done a couple of shows where we talked about Magic and Bitcoin Cash. I was re-listening to the episode where we did the FTX sponsorship of LR actually recently, and we I don't know, some of that aged well and some of it didn't. But anyway, that's a whole separate discussion. But so we had this little tournament, and the payouts worked and everything like that. But of course, the idea is that you will now be able to, as time goes on, expand it out. Like, you can play any game, right?
That is a critical component of this. So right now, it's a testing phase, which means everything is very locked down. Nobody in the world has the capability of spinning up new tournament guilds except for me. And that's because, we're moving money around. We want to make sure everything's working perfectly. We want to make sure the non-Bitcoin Cash core systems are also functioning correctly. But the vision is, once we have finished with the the public beta test, I will flip a switch and we will be into kind of wide release. Once we're in that phase, anyone who wants to can spin up a guild for whatever game they want to. They can set, what time of day the tournaments are starting. They can set the buy-in amount. Invite all your friends into it, and the system will handle all of the complexities of running the tournament, and you can just play in the tournaments, the games that you're passionate about. So right now we have a tournament we have a guild for Magic the Gathering. And by the way, when I say guild, that means this thing is running periodic tournaments once every 5 days, hence a fifth of gaming. Once every 5 days, there is a Magic the Gathering tournament for this guild. We are going to be spinning up very soon a second, like kind of officially sponsored public guild, which is I'm going to call it the AFOG Silver League, which will be all about Dota 2, which is another game that I'm excited about. And then Jeremy, we have our own announcement. I don't know if you want to do that now or later.
Yeah, hit it.
Okay, cool. So big exciting announcement for Bitcoin Cash episode 94. Another one. Number one, I'm Satoshi. Number two is this. We are actually just this morning, I created the guild. The name of the guild is Power Overwhelming. And this is going to be a StarCraft 2 themed, a fifth of gaming guild. Our first tournament is going to be this Friday. The buy-in is $5 worth of Bitcoin Cash. The Bitcoin Cash podcast has very generously elected to sponsor this guild. So shout out to you guys. They put $150 in the pot. Fifth of Gaming is also sponsoring this guild. So we maxed the donation. This tournament that's coming up on Friday, it's got $150 worth of Bitcoin Cash up for grabs. And then there's $150 in the guild's vault, which will be used to fund, future events. So if you are a StarCraft 2 enthusiast, if you are a Bitcoin Cash enthusiast, just kind of want to see how this works, the guild is open, it's public. You can go there right now, fifthofgaming.com, and look for Power Overwhelming as the guild name, join the guild, and then you can register for the tournament. And if you have any problems, any user interface feedback, please let us know. We're always looking for ways to improve it.
Yeah, so we've got, I'm going to play in that. B-Chad, I believe, is also going to play in it. Hopefully we can get Callisti in there. He and I have played I'm Down 0-1, and we played a 3-2 ZVZ series. Edged me out, but so I've got to try and get my revenge maybe in this tournament. But obviously, the reason I'm so excited about this kind of thing is because it's the perfect mix of so many things, even though some gamers, especially in the Magic community, like we've talked about before, are a bit like wary of it. I think they're slowly getting over this whole crypto's a scam stuff, and just obviously have to be smart about not getting involved with custodians. But that's the whole point of this, right? That it's non-custodial. You just pay in, you pay out. There's no PayPal fees. There's no everybody has to sign up for these accounts or whatever. You just get Selene wallet. It's instant because it's BCH. Boom, you're just rocking and rolling, right?
Yeah, the only thing that you need to create a Fifth of Gaming account is just an email address that you can click a link that we send you to verify that it's real. And that's just to keep the bots out. I don't want to know your name. I don't care what your phone number is. I don't care about who you are. You can create an account, and then obviously the Bitcoin Cash aspect is just anonymous. Here's an address to send it to, and then we'll send you back, whatever your winnings are.
So Emergent Reason says, how are outcomes agreed on?
Oh, yeah.
Can you just give a bit more explanation. Who decides who wins any individual game?
Sure. No, that's an important question. So there is a self-report mechanism built into the system where when a match is open, that is to say the bracket has assigned these two people against each other, both of those two people, when they look at the tournament page, will see their list of matches, and their current matches will have a button on either side. One says I won, the other one says I lost. So the self-reporting mechanism will collect responses from the players of a match until it reaches a point where more than 50% of the participants are saying, okay, this side won. So right now it's all 1v1 stuff. So in order to get more than 50%, both players have to agree who won. But if we're doing, let's say, again, Dota 2, for example, there's 10 players in a match. The system will wait until it gets 6 responses to say, okay, there's 6 responses that agree with each other. Okay, this side won. Now, if there's a failure to self-report or whatever, the Fifth of Gaming also has this concept of admins, so administrators. The system will automatically award the mantle of admin to the 5 players in the guild who are the most active. Like, historically speaking, they have been the most active participants. Those players, when they view this tournament page, have another module that they can see, which is all of the matches that are currently open, and they can kind of, from a high level, say, okay, this person is actually the one. So if there's some kind of dispute, or if matches haven't been reported in a reasonable amount of time or whatever, they have the power to keep things moving along. And as an aside, we have created a financial incentive for those admins to not only be honest with how they're running the tournament, but also to, I don't know, I guess, reach out and like put the work in to grow their little guild community. So the way the prize pool breakdown works is 90% of the prize pool goes to the people who are winning, like are actually playing well in the bracket and finish well. 5% goes to the 5 admins. So each of them get what I'm calling an admin tip, which is 1% of the pot. Again, to make sure they have an incentive to keep things running smoothly. 2% goes back into the guild vault, which is used to fund future tournaments. And then 3% is the rake that goes into the guild subscription, which ends up in the developer's pocket, which is me.
Yes. Yes. No, I love this. I love every element about this, right? Because this is so perfect, because gamers are competitive. And even though there's sort of a bit of a split, I find like some people are really in gaming. They don't like money being associated with it. You know, it's just for fun. Haha. And that's fine. That's great. And like you said, that's what it that was the original Fifth of Gaming, was just operating on that. And obviously it can still serve those people. I mean, I guess you just set the buy-in to $0 and
yeah,
it just,
there's 2 types of guild now. One is the competitive with the tournaments, and the other one I'm calling social guilds, which is just, okay, game night once every 5 nights, very casual, no money. It's just play games with your friends.
Perfect. But the competitive side is, you know, obviously where my heart lies, and also where people get into putting money on the line. And just obviously, like, poker has a huge online industry, even with how much red tape and bullshit there is with that of people, you know, when some money's involved and people are competitive and playing games, and that all goes through. So I can just see this being like a huge thing for BCH, because this is also a hard thing to replicate on another coin. If you have high fees, it's going to be a disaster. If you don't have instant speed transactions, it's going to be a pain in the ass to use. If you're not a community that likes to actually spend the coin and has non-custodial wallets and all that stuff being developed, then it's not really going to run all that well. So I wanted to ask you about the people, like, obviously you said the events have been a success, but in terms of the player base that you've had so far and how you see that developing in the future, are you getting people who are keen on BCH or more keen on gaming? Yeah. Do the gaming people get onboarded kind of easily? How does that work?
So we've got a mix of both right now, as you might imagine. Like, you know, when we were trying to invite as many people as possible to our big, exciting public beta launch, we were reaching out in 2 very different ways to 2 very different communities. On one hand, I'm reaching out to the Bitcoin Cash community and saying, hey, here's this new Bitcoin Cash utility thing, like this gaming platform where Bitcoin Cash is, you know, the only unit of account for all these competitive tournaments. So come play. Magic the Gathering, by the way, Magic the Gathering Arena is this free-to-play thing with tutorials and comes with cards. So even if you don't know how to play, just come have a good time. Come check out this Bitcoin Cash thing. On the other hand, I'm reaching out to the Magic the Gathering community and trying to minimize the crypto-ness of it. Just saying, hey, here's this Magic tournament, and it's got this giant buy-in, which, by the way, the buy-in, or not the giant buy-in, a giant payout, the size of the prize pool actually turned out to be something of a problem. I'd go to these Magic forums and I'd say, hey, here's this tournament. It's got a, $800 prize pool. The buy-in is $1 and it's cryptocurrency. Everyone's like, oh, well, it's a scam. I mean, obviously there's no way a $1 buy-in tournament with 20 people in it has an $800 prize pool. So anyway, reaching out to both these 2 communities in 2 different ways, trying to emphasize 2 different things, we ended up with a I'll call it the diverse mix of players in this tournament. And as you might imagine, the Magic players did quite well in the tournament compared to the Bitcoin Cash players who had just downloaded the game that afternoon. So, but that presented another exciting and interesting opportunity in the sense that I now have these Magic players saying, "Hey, I won this Bitcoin Cash. Like, what do I do with it now? Like, how do I?" And I'm like, "Well, hey, I'm glad you asked. Let me tell you about how to do Bitcoin Cash stuff." So obviously I had a great opportunity to invite them to download the Selene wallet. And I kind of showed the steps like, okay, here's how you withdraw from a Fifth of Gaming. It's like sending an email. Here's your address, and this is public. And I gave them the whole spiel. So it has been so far, at least, great in that respect for introducing new people to Bitcoin Cash. And my vision is that becomes a standard thing. Like, people hear about a Fifth of Gaming as this great hub for, competitive tournaments and stuff. And they hear like, oh yeah, it's crypto buy-in or whatever. And I think crypto has been around long enough that people at least understand conceptually what that involves. And so people will say, oh, well, hey, I want to participate in this League of Legends tournament, like Sam Bankman-Fried, if he wanted to, probably he would do a League of Legends guild. So there's some topical humor for you. That's Sam Bankman-Fried's child speak.
Yes.
So, hey, I want to participate in this tournament. How do I get Bitcoin Cash? And of course, we'll have our FAQs, which will link to your FAQs, which are fantastic, by the way. And that will be a way to introduce people to Bitcoin Cash. So that's one of the boxes checked. Like, I have this list of goals for Fifth of Gaming. One of them is I want to show people the capabilities of Bitcoin Cash as programmable money. Like, and here's this streamlined experience of sending and receiving money into this tournament engine. And now I'm a Bitcoin Cash believer. That's the vision, anyways.
Yeah, no, this is amazing. I love everything about this. And one of the things I'm also really looking forward to is obviously, I don't know when, but feature request from me is going to be the global leaderboard, because as soon as you get that, that's the competitive set to max. As soon as you have a leaderboard of here's the top screen names, here's the top payouts that they've won, and here's the button with like a link to this guy's Twitter or email or whatever to challenge him to a 1-1. Boom. Now you are absolutely cooking with gasoline, because what's going to happen is it's immediately going to turn into anybody who is good at any of these games. Like, making a living as a gamer is tough, right? And people, plenty of people they level up accounts in their spare time, to play more of the game at like the top level, or they play at the top level, but there's not really that much money to it or something. But a Fifth of Gaming could drive all of that where you have a public system. And one of the reason that gaming is a perfect niche is obviously I do the streams on Twitch TV. Why? Because I'm the same. I've had a long history of being involved in gaming, and I love all of it. And all we need is one or two of these big streamers to get what's going on here, and they will get on and they will start live streaming their challenges, playing against people, and they're going to have their reputation on the line. So they're not going to like flake out on paying out people, and anybody who wants to challenge them, if you flake out, well, hopefully you've probably already put up the money before it even begins, but if you do flake out or you have some kind of problem, there's already a social accountability mechanism in there where people will be like, all right, just this guy's not getting involved in any more challenges. It's the same as poker. Like, to get into private games, you have to build up rep among the known people, and it will be the same with gaming here, but with Bitcoin Cash. And I'm
I love it. There's a couple of mechanisms that I believe will be great for driving adoption. Like, you mentioned the streaming thing, and I believe that is going to be a big deal. I'm optimistic about that. So I've actually already built Twitch integration into the tournament page. So anyone who's using a Fifth of Gaming today can add their Twitch handle into their player profile. And then when you are participating in the tournament, a Fifth of Gaming will go talk to Twitch and say, hey, here's a list of all these players that I've got in this tournament. Are any of them streaming right now? Oh, these 6 guys are. Let me snag their stream and all their stats about their stream and just embed that on the tournament page. So, and it also has a mechanism where as players get eliminated, I remove their stream from the screen. So yeah, so it's gonna be like a last man standing kind of thing. Like, hey, are you an aspiring Twitch streamer and you've got 15 subscribers, but you want more? Oh, hey, there's a 500 player Magic tournament this weekend with a $30,000 prize pool. Go win that. Stream yourself winning it, and you will get a lot of eyeballs on your stream because people who are interested in that tournament will come to the page. They'll see the streams list. They'll see you on it in the top 4, and people will watch you. But then it goes from the other direction too. If it's a big name streamer who already has 100,000 subscribers, they love doing events like that. Like, hey, come play with me. So, I mean, we could do some kind of like affiliate link where we say, hey, big name streamer, give this link to your followers. And, for every follower of yours that subscribes using this link, we'll give you X% of the pool or whatever. And the viewers of those streamers love the possibility that they might get to play against their favorite streamer in some tournament. So it's like, all right, well, he's going to be playing in this. Come play with him. And it's just another feedback loop of, eyeballs coming to the site and wanting to participate. And yeah, you mentioned the professional players. Like, that's another aspect of my fanciful dream about what affiliate gaming can become. Like, you mentioned that it is challenging to be a professional gamer. Like, you have to get sponsorships, and if you don't have that, well, you're in trouble. But imagine if a fifth of gaming is like this hub where, hey, hundreds of people are putting a few bucks into a pool to play StarCraft 2 or Overwatch or Counter-Strike or whatever it is, and I'm an aspiring professional Dota player. I can go win this tournament because I am a pro, semi-pro player trying to hit the big times. I can go and win, $500 or whatever, and now I'm set for groceries for the week, and I can continue pursuing my dream. Again, this is all fanciful daydreams, but I love shooting for the moon here.
It's going to kick off, I think, faster than any of us expect, right? And I'm so keen about this because this is where we're getting to. This is where Bitcoin Cash community is starting to get to that point. Like, after the split, there was all chaos. There's forks and fighting and all that for years, and then you've got to have the node level. The protocol has to settle, the politics and governance has to settle. Then you have to have the dev libraries. Now we're starting to get some good wallets, obviously with Selene wallet, but also others as well too. Paytaka, Zapit, they're getting better all the time, right? The Cashonize wallet, like, they're all getting better. And so now we're starting to get to the like end consumer type of stuff. Cash Rain, BCH Guru, this Fifth of Gaming, right? Lots of these projects are really starting to get going, and then they'll also need to cook for a year or two to come out. A BCH Bull, right? These things are just building up and up and up, and at one point they're gonna all start to kind of come good at the same time, and then the network effect of all of them is going to be insane because people are going to come in and try like a Fifth of Gaming, and then be like, what else is going on? Oh, wow, the Bitcoin Cash podcast sponsors. Let me listen to this. Oh, wait, there's these 10 other things that I can try out. How cool is all of this? And we're attracting people away from, it doesn't matter what other crypto we're not doing on Twitter or trying to win a debate. It's just like our stuff is more fun and cooler and better than anyone's. So
yeah, 100%. I believe that's in the future, and I believe it's not too far away. And boy, I'm excited about it. Like, yeah, it's gonna be amazing.
Yes. Okay, cool. Is there anything else you want to add and explain about that before we move on?
Yeah, I will say in brief, please be gentle with your feedback about the site. I recognize that it doesn't look very sharp. I am not a good front end developer, but I've got one now, and we're working on an overhaul. Any feedback that any of the users have is worth its weight in gold. So if you try Fifth Gaming, let us know what you think of it. What can we improve? And yeah, I'm just super excited about the future. Like, our backlog is getting longer faster than it's getting shorter because I have trouble focusing on anything else because I keep thinking of like, oh man, Fifth Gaming, it should totally have this and that. And we're getting great feedback from users in terms of like feature suggestions. Like, I mean, Jeremy, the one that you just mentioned is fantastic. We got a great idea from Tula, which I'm trying to roll out in the next day or two. Like, it's wild. It's crazy.
I have one more question before.
Yes, sir.
So I would love to take place in these, but I just don't think I have the time. So I'm curious, so if you've been doing this for a while, what suggestions do you have for I guess the time management around this kind of thing?
So the nice thing about a fifth of gaming is the consistency of the scheduling. So it's always once every 5 days, and because there's no central authority or whatever, or anyone's personal schedule has to be worked around, you know that these events are going to be once every 5 days forever. So you can take the currently scheduled session and look out into the future on the calendar and say, hey, I want to participate in one of these tournaments. I know for sure there's going to be one on, X day of X month. I'm going to put that on my calendar and then protect it from any other real world things that might want to take that time slot. That's the way I do it when I have, special events. My social guild, I'm just kind of in the cadence from having done it for the last 4 or 5 years, whatever. It's just every 5 days I play a round of whatever with my friends. Currently playing across the obelisk. Diablo 4 is coming up next, and it's just kind of part of my routine these days.
Yeah, Emergent Reason says in the chat, are you looking for investment? So that might need to be a conversation you need to follow up. But maybe just briefly touch on what's the kind of monetization game plan here. You're already sounding like you're getting enough feedback and stuff that this could be a full-time type of setup.
Yeah, so of course that is the dream scenario, is I'm able to quit my job and just work on this full time. Very probably my boss is going to be listening to this podcast because he's low-key BCH enthusiast. So just to be clear, Mike, I love my job. I love working for you. It's all great, but we both know this is the dream state. Yes, in terms of monetization, so there is a 3% rake I mentioned. That's going to be a little bit of income. The potential for sponsorships is very interesting. So imagine you have this guild that's focused on StarCraft 2 or whatever, and it's attracted a lot of big name StarCraft players that participate in these semi-weekly events. And we've got that sponsorship bar at the top right now, which is very crude. It's just got logo and a link to it, and that's all there put there manually. But I can imagine a system where we sort of formalize and automate that, where someone looking at this page will see a little thing that says, hey, you want to sponsor this? Send this amount of money into the guild vault. That's the thing that seeds future tournaments. And the more you send to this, and we'll give you a unique address so we know exactly where it's coming from, the higher your sponsorship tier will be on the tournament page. And so that money would feed into this guild's ecosystem, which would attract more players, which would increase the rake. But also we have talked about this idea of doing like higher level guild subscriptions. Like right now, the guild subscription is like $1 per player per month. So it's very I'm not trying to extract lots of wealth out of people. It's $1 a month. But we've talked about the possibility of okay, maybe we can have like a premium level subscription that has all these cool features and whatever. So we are very much at the moment just trying to finish building out the very important core features, and we're making great progress on that. It is very fun to think about hey, maybe this will make some money someday. But to be clear, right now, this has been very much a money losing enterprise for me. But yeah, maybe someday. And when we reach that point, again, because Bitcoin Cash is integrated into the heart of the system, I imagine that integrating all of these kinds of things that I'm talking about will be pretty painless. We've already got all the pieces we need. It's just a matter of what exactly we're going to offer and what we're going to charge for it. But yeah, that's a ways down the road, but it is exciting to think about from time to time.
Yeah. No, it's great to hear. And I think, you might have more economic traction going there faster than you think, if I had to bet. But I'm very happy to be sponsoring this tournament, and we'll be playing in that next week. Hopefully we can do some streaming of that. I know Chad is definitely going to be streaming. Hopefully we'll also do a stream as well, and hopefully I can wreck Callisti. So
I will
1v1.
I hope you guys meet in the finals. I will also be streaming it, but just to be clear, I was trash tier at StarCraft 2 back in the day. Then I stopped playing for 12 years. I cannot imagine my skills have improved in that time. So I will be participating in the tournament, and it is double elimination, so I will be playing twice, and I will stream the adventure there. No.
Yes. No, I'm certainly a little bit out of practice. Might have to see if I can slot in some time this week to play. Maybe, I don't know. I probably can't play random, which I would like to do. I might have to just play Zerg.
Yeah, I was always Protoss, but part of the reason why I named the guild Power Overwhelming is because I just love that.
Yes.
The Archon Fuse is so cool. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Next thing we've got on the agenda then is Cashonize adds the WalletConnect V2. So there's an announcement just yesterday from Cashonize, the web wallet that Matthew Jerkins is working on. He said, new chapter for Cashonize begins today. Connect your wallet seamlessly to Web3 BCH apps. That's the initiative and work by mainnet Pat. Cashonize now supports the WalletConnect V2 standard. Also, big thanks to the funders of the Flipstarter campaign and Jim Tendo for code reviews. So I wanted to call this out for just quickly a couple reasons, which is, firstly, the dev work is relentless, right? Things are always plowing away at every level of the ecosystem, and it's great to see that our ability to compete with the ETH DeFi ecosystem is also rapidly just leveling up as everybody works away on it. Obviously, we have to build everything from scratch because we can't just copy paste like most of these other EVM chains. We do need to build it all on UTXO, but that's starting to get rolling. So I'm very, very pleased to see that. I'm pleased to see again Starters is delivering. Matthew putting up good results there. So the community once again can just double down on Flipstarters, doing an amazing job in moving money to the right people. And certainly if he's running more Flipstarters, I contribute, and I recommend other people to contribute. And finally, the Cash Ninjas Mint, which I believe was also some of the emphasis on this, will be live in just a couple of hours. When we started the stream, it was about 5 hours away, I think. But let me just see if I look up the site right now. I think it's probably only 3 or 4 hours away at the max. So if you're interested in that project and the NFTs and all the work that they're doing there, then you can check that out at ninjas.cash and have a chance to try out this new WalletConnect V2 with Cashonize as well too. So I'm super excited about that, and wondering if you have any thoughts on development of the ecosystem or these improving wallets and
I love to see this stuff. And part of the reason why I'm so excited to see it is because I don't understand most of this stuff, like this, like what's going on with this thing. It's out of my wheelhouse. I have my area of expertise over here, and someone else in the Bitcoin Cash ecosystem is doing these other things that I'm not paying attention to, but are still happening over there. It's beauty of this decentralized network is like everyone can contribute all over the place, like, and it's absolutely fantastic. I will say I am very enthusiastic about peer-to-peer electronic cash. I have been in this space a long time. I have explored a lot of use cases. Peer-to-peer cash is the only one that I am passionate about. So the mints, the NFTs, all that stuff, like, I'm glad there are people that are excited about that and that are working on it for Bitcoin Cash, but it's not something that I'm jazzed about, which is why I said I don't really understand what's going on and what they're doing and stuff. It's space.
Yeah, well, we don't need to get into it now, but maybe sometime once Fifth of Gaming has done a few more iterations, we'll have to get you back and get what's the story with Cash Token, because this is another thing that is just going to be huge, is then once you'll be able to buy in like shares of somewhat like on poker they do stables, people back each other as to winning the tournament, and you could do the same thing with Cash Token. You could bet on your favorite stream to win and get a piece of the winning, so you're crowdfunding their entry, and like, there's so much that could be
I hadn't thought about that. That's a cool idea.
I got a lot of ideas, man. I know. It's just not enough hours a day.
The theme with the Fifth of Gaming the last 3 months is like every other day it's something like, oh man, that's fantastic. Like, I hadn't thought about that. But quick, right in the backlog before we forget it. Like, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's a good problem to have. Too many things and not enough time. Okay, so it's 3 hours and 39 minutes until the ninjas.cash mint starts. So if you're interested in that, you can check that out at ninjas.cash. And by the time you listen to this episode, it will certainly be live. That's there's 5,000 ninjas, and I don't know what the mint price is. 0.05 BCH mint price. So maybe get in there and get a few ninjas. The artwork is fantastic, and it's really cool.
The artwork does look really cool. I saw a preview of it. It looks slick.
It's kicking off. We're getting some more artists in the space too, which is great to see. Okay, all right. So now onto our drama segment, which I personally have been looking forward to a lot. I've got a first slide here though, because I think before we get in a lot of W's and a lot of dunks on the rest of the crypto scene, which is always fun, you first got to start with a bit of introspection, right? Before you're calling out everyone else, well, you got to make sure your own house is in order. And I heard this saying this week that your mess is your message. Shout out to Alex Hormozy, who is where I found that, although I don't think he came up with it. But I like that. I was thinking about that a lot, right? You can tell where your problems are. Like you actually just need to think about it. What's the mess? What that should be telling me something. Why has this become mine? So I wondered, what is the BCH mess at the moment? I think overall, I think we're doing really good. I would say since CoinFlex drama, we haven't had really a lot of big dramas or problems in the community. A little bit here and there, you know, among people, but mostly it's been fine. So I thought, well, where is our actual mess then? And I concluded that it was the fact that we're still kind of being a bit ignored. We've got to the point that nobody wants to talk to us really anymore, as we're going to see, because we've got all the answers. Like we're winning the dates too hard. So instead, the strategy has just become, let's just pretend these guys don't exist and kind of hope that it'll go away or something. But we can't let that happen. So we need to find a way to be louder and more in people's face in terms of developing like on-chain apps or things that are just attracting their own organic hype. That was my conclusion. But what do you think? Where is the community in a mess at the moment?
Yeah, there's no such thing as bad publicity. Like, you know, it's cliche, could be debated, but I think there's a nugget of truth there. Yes, the history of Bitcoin Cash has, there's no two ways to say it, drama and confusion and chaos. As I was saying earlier, I believe we are in a more stable state right now. But yeah, I appreciate what you just said about like people don't want to talk to us because we have like good answers to their criticisms and good responses, and people have their beliefs and they don't want to hear things like true things that call that core belief system into question. One of their core beliefs is, oh, Bitcoin Cash is just this scam. Like people tried to steal the Bitcoin name and they failed, and they're still trying to scam people today. It's like, well, that's not actually what happened, and that's not actually what's happening now. So yeah, making ourselves difficult to ignore is a good thing, as long as we're not being like jerks about it. As long as we're being winsome in our conversations, like we're not name calling or mudslinging or anything. It's just like, hey, you have questions and criticisms about Bitcoin Cash. Hey, here's some honest, carefully presented truth on the matter, and do with that what you will. But yeah, louder is better as long as it's not obnoxious.
What I'm saying is maybe we need to get a bit obnoxious.
Okay.
Stir the pot a little bit. I'm certainly willing to do that, Jeff. What do you think?
So I think this is one of the things that Paul said that I think really resonates with me. And I think I understand where you're getting from. There are certain people that I think we need to get in their face and be like, listen, we've got all your problems sorted out. You just have to move your wealth to this chain and the whole world lightens up. It's such a better place here. But I think for the majority of like normal people, we should do what Paul said and just be the cool kids having that party that you want to be a part of. I think A Fifth of Gaming does a bunch of that. I think this podcast does a bunch of that. I think the Beachheads work does a bunch of that. So depending on the demographic, we either get in their face and be like, listen, all of your problems can be solved with this other chain that's been around forever. And then for most people, we can still do the same old, I suppose depending on who they are. If you can be your own bank, you can get independence, you can blah, blah, blah.
That is a recurring theme, isn't it? Of like somebody on Twitter complains about this problem, some problem in whatever chain they're talking about. And some, Bcasher slides into the replies and is like, hey, this solution is solved over there on Bitcoin Cash. Like, you want to come join? Like, shut up, stupid. Cash. It's like, we're on the same team here, bro. I'm trying to help you out with I have the solution to the problem you're complaining about. Like, it's, yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, we're kind of at the point that we have a lot of answers to a lot of, because what are we here doing? Figuring out how to build a fifth of gaming, right? And the BTC guys are still like, wait, what's happening with our block size? I just saw Vlad Kosti posted right before the show. I think we're going to raise the block size in a couple of years, guys. Like, that's still just where they're at, or like Ethereum's like, oh shit, now we're having to put everything on L2s because our scalability, there's cheap lighting in the background.
But by the way, fun fact, this cat's name is Gwei, as in
Gwei,
one billionth of an Ethereum unit. Yeah, that's Gwei. I've been in crypto a long time.
Yeah, wow.
My other cat's name is Nance. True story, I swear. Man.
Wow, Gwei and Nonce. Yeah, I guess you have to explain those to every person that comes in.
Yeah.
Anyway, the point is, like, so I think the ultimate way, really, in the end, and we'll see this in a second, that we can get in people's face is just moving up the market cap leaderboard. Because I feel like the next thing is, once we hit the top 10, that's it. That's like Bitcoin Cash is fucking back, baby. Like, as soon as that happens, where are the doubters going to be? They're going to be in a panic. Where are the haters? What are you going to say? Like, these guys were gone. Everyone forgot about them. Rank 31. It's a scam. Blah, blah, blah. They're back. Like, after all this time, what's happening here, right? That's the only undeniable thing I think we can do. And so the best thing, obviously, we can do for that is to get apps that create on-chain usage, that lock up coins on-chain, which is a fifth of gaming is perfect for that. BCH Bull, BCH Guru, there's Cash Rain, maybe there's lots of these things cooking. So I think, if we can shove that forward in any way we can.
Yeah, 100%. So there is in the cryptocurrency space today a wild misconception it's very prevalent, but it holds that large market caps means this project is legitimate, it has wide scale adoption, and it's made it. But that is really not correct. Like, the top 10 projects are, for the most part, in my humble but educated opinion, all garbage. Like, it's well, I don't want to get down to that, but the unfortunate reality is people put a lot of stock in the cryptocurrency rankings. I don't believe they should, but that's the reality of the situation. So the higher Bitcoin Cash climbs on that ladder, the more eyeballs will be on it. And certainly some of them will be aggressive critics, but some of them will just be curious bystanders, like, oh, here's this new project in the top 10, which I have never heard before, or I heard it was a scam or whatever. But how could it be way up here with the big boys if it's like all the maximalists say, just a side scam or whatever? So I'm excited about how we've been doing this year, price wise. Like, if for no other reason than for that reason, that as it climbs the rankings, more people will be looking at it and seeing all of the exciting and interesting work that we have done over the last 5 years and are still doing today. So yeah, it's exciting times.
Okay, all right.
Speaking of which,
let's get to the drama. Okay, first up, we have Juan Galt, who, as was discussed on the episode last week, he fell through. So I've got the complete chat logs here. I'm just going to read it all out because I don't think if I just summarize it, I think there'll be, oh, that's just Jeremy's version of events. But I'm just going to read it through tweet by tweet, the main chunk of what was said after that episode. So Firstly, you have Juan Galt said, I'm sorry, my blocks were full. I slept in, then went to dinner with fam and totally forgot about this. I'm down to reschedule. Would have been a great troll, lol. I said, down to reschedule, but to raise proof of work requirement and reduce chances of a repeat occurrence, I'm going to need a 3BH bond. And then I put a BCH address, and then I'll send it back to you live on air. If you don't show, I keep the sats. Tweet is accountability. And he replied, can I buy it from you for sats on Lightning? You tell me which BCH wallet to use, and I'll tell you which LN wallet to get. And then he said, never mind, that's way too much money, lol. Make it $50 equivalent, and I'm game. 3 BCH obviously being, nearly $600, nearly $700. I said, you can't buy it from me for LN sats. I don't accept fake Bitcoin, only the real thing. Tongue poking out emoji. Maybe someone else will do a P2P swap, though, if you ask around. I'll reduce the amount to $50, though. That's a fair request. Let's say 0.25 BCH, which is currently $52. He said, meh, I've lost interest. Maybe some other time. So I was like, you are done, son. I have absolutely got you here. So I quote tweeted him with screenshots of all this and said, have fun staying poor. And that felt fucking amazing. And he replied saying, LeMayo, cry harder with the price graph of BCH. And I said, bro, you don't have $50. No chart can save you. Ha 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 ha. He said, I'm too lazy to buy Bcash, much less give it to you. You are the one begging for money after all. And I said, you're too lazy to show for a podcast and too lazy to have a net worth greater than $50. I'm not begging for money. I said I'd send it back live on air. The point is not the money. It's to prevent you falling through in the exact manner you now have twice. BTC on Struggle Street. So obviously he fell through. The thing is, when you're in a situation like this with anyone, if you're in an argument with somebody who knows what they're doing, they only need a small crack. Once you open the door just a little bit, they jam their foot in there and you are finished. So he fell through on the podcast. He said he'd reschedule. I honestly didn't think it would be that big of a deal. I was like, okay, we'll get one over on him. He's going to have to send in the BCH, but we'll do the episode. That'll be fine. I'll send him back the BCH and I'll be like, haha, he did get him to use the BCH. But I wasn't expecting was that he wouldn't even have the money. Like, I'm mind blown about that. Like, maybe he does or doesn't have $700, but I didn't think that would be a big deal. It was just so funny because the whole thing is we're rich and have fun staying poor and all of that. But he was genuinely like, shit, this is a lot of money. And Chad, are you gonna chime in here?
Yeah, I think this is hilarious. One of my very first, so my introduction to crypto, I've explained this on the podcast before, was a Facebook group called Anarcrypt. Anarcrypt V2 hilariously was a fork of Anarcrypt because it's cryptocurrency and a bunch of nerds do that. Anyway, I remember very distinctly there was a Monero dude in there who just like shit posted all the time. And he regularly would be like, listen, if you're talking to someone that can't prove they have $1,000 in their bank account, you should stop talking to them. And I feel like we just did that to Mr. Galt here.
That's right. It's just so ironic that all this Twitter, big talk and have fun staying poor. And he even posted the price chart to me. I'm like, dude, you just said you don't have $700. Like, it doesn't really matter with this price. Clearly, you hadn't invested in this grand price run up. Otherwise, it wouldn't even be a big deal. And like, I don't know if it was the situation where it was reversed and I'd done it, I would be like, fine. There's no risk. I've made the tweets. All the blockchain records would be there, right? There's no way. So anyway, then he said, "Can you put it down to $50?" And I said, "Yeah, that's fine." And then he still fell through anyway and tried to come up with these weird, like, "Oh, you're begging for money." Like, I honestly can't tell whether he's just too stupid to understand what the offer was, or whether he was just trying to find a way to sort of excuse it. And then he kind of came up with some other stuff after this, being like, well, if you won't try Lightning Network, why should I try BCH? And it's kind of like, well, because you're the one who dogged us on the original show. So now the ball's in our court and you've got to come meet us on our side of the fence. Also, I have no reason to send you any Lightning Network because like the whole point of this is you've got to put in the bond. We're not doing a Lightning Network bond. We're doing a BCH bond. Yeah. So I don't know. I had great fun with this. And Juan, if you're watching, mate, it's time to just grow up and be an adult, right? If you fall through on the podcast, not only do you look like an asshole originally, but doubling down, then you're just looking incompetent, mate. So tough.
Pantera in the chat said he'll need the $50 to buy a coffee in the morning.
Yeah. This whole situation was bizarre. Well, first of all, Juan, if you are watching, I just got to say, you missed out on a great experience. Like, being on the Bitcoin Cash podcast is, so far, it has been a blast. So, you're shooting yourself in the foot by skipping out on it. But yeah, it was a weird play by him. I guess he was gonna stick it to you. Like, he's gonna show you how, oh man, I'll show up. I will not show up for their podcast. That'll teach him. Like, that's not how you win an argument. Like, if you want to come and convince us of the merits of Lightning Network, which, boy, that is a tall task. Like, I can say, the benefit of anyone who doesn't know already, the Lightning Network is not good. Like, it is not a marvel of technical achievement. It's a Rube Goldberg machine. But if you want to come and make that case in a public forum with an expert from the other side of the fence, do that. Don't, sure, I'll come, and then not come and be, haha, gotcha. I don't know.
But I don't think I think he did actually mean to show up. I don't think it was a troll. That's what I said at the time. And then he said that himself. He said, no, I wasn't trolling. Like, I genuinely just, blanked, or I didn't schedule it properly. And that happens. Like, that does happen. So the killer point was then afterwards, I said, okay, well, I'll give you okay, it wasn't a troll, but obviously, if he's going to put $700 on the line, I'm not going to care if he trolls me again. I'll keep the 700.
Yeah, so keep the 700.
That's fine.
Yeah.
So it seemed like a perfectly fair request, but then that was just too much, and it just all fell apart there.
It would have led to an exciting counterpoint opportunity. Where, like, you said, hey, I'll give you this $700 live on stream.
Yes.
And, show here's how fast and awesome Bitcoin Cash is. You could say, like, hey, for curiosity's sake, like, can you send me $5 on the Lightning Network right now? And maybe it'll work. Like, maybe there's no properly funded channels between you and him. Like, and that's right. That would be perfect if it fumbled live on the stream. That would have been fantastic.
Exactly. That's right. And I just have him dead to rights on like every angle of this. And it's just, it's,
yeah.
What else can you say? This is just the state where the debate has got to. Like, he has about 7,000 Twitter followers, so the show is now big enough that it's about the same, about roughly equivalent in terms of his kind of reach. He can come in here and like, it's just ratioing him over and over in the Twitter thread, because people who like are on my side are like, well, Jeremy's wrecking him, and then whoever was reading it from his side was kind of like, whoa, I do not want to be getting in here. Like, we are getting absolutely roasted. So that's just great to see, and the inertia is now on our side. But yeah, if you just fall through, like, that's just it just feels to me like the kind of thing a teenager would do. Like, if you fall through on a business deal and then you're like, no, but it needs to be tit for tat. It's like, no, dude, you already fell through the first time, so actually you're starting off with the lower rep. Yeah, exactly. Right. You got a deficit to make up. Anyway, that's why he will not be coming on the show, and good luck to him with his whole Bitcoin price graph, I guess. Okay, that's that drama out of the way for anybody who is interested in what happened to that. Okay, we've got now the price segment, which I've moved down in the show. Usually we do it at the start to be, but it's relevant to this second piece of drama. So the title is BCH reflaps LTC, then retreats. So today, Bitcoin Cash is $228.91 USD, which is up 1 BTC buys 121.8 BCH. So we're also up on the ratio there, and 1 ETH buys 7.1 BCH. So we're up marginally. But the bigger story is that we are rank 17 with about 4.46 billion in market cap, and 2 spots higher than us. Rank 15 is Litecoin, which has 4.8 billion market cap. And in the last week, BCH did at one point pump up, and a couple times it just briefly was ahead of Litecoin before falling back down. Now, this is a big deal because in the grand context of cryptocurrency, like you're saying with the top 10, a lot of it's garbage. And also there's different niches of coins, right? So Bitcoin Cash is in the cash section, essentially, with Litecoin being probably the biggest competitor, then maybe Dogecoin, but that's also just known as a joke. And then obviously Bitcoin BTC, who themselves have mostly given up on being part of this whole cash economy type of situation. So if BCH can reflip LTC, then suddenly we're kind of like the number one coin if you scroll down the list where you get to like the cash option parts of it. And the reason this is also a big dunk is because the LTC community, and I have a screenshot here from Reddit years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, when LTC first flipped over BCH, they called it the flappening because their motto is the chicken, I guess. Then they have a thread here, the top voted comment, "It's happening, watch the LTC BCH flappening live." And the top comment is, "Fuck BCH and fuck Roger Ver." And then some guy said, "I'm with you," right? So there was quite a bit of contention at that time. And while things are now a little bit less, obviously we had the LTC podcast, LTC Underground on the show, was the first episode of this year, right? And at that time, BCH was ranked 27. And then now, 10 months later, we're passing them at rank 15 on the charts. And okay, we've dropped back a little bit, but obviously, we're gonna just pump past them at some point, and I won't make a big deal out of it at that time. But now it's like the 4-minute mile. Once you run the 4-minute mile, then suddenly the mental barrier is broken. It's like that. We've already broken their spirit, I feel like. And when I was trying to say to him, like, did you expect that there would be this flippening? Or he was just saying, oh, the markets are irrational. And I'm kind of thinking, that doesn't explain it. You can't explain that we've gone, they were nearly in the top 10 and we were nearly out of the top 30. And here we are passing you guys. So it's great to see, basically.
Yeah. By the way, that was a great episode. The Lightning Network, or the Litecoin Underground. Yeah, that was a great episode. I enjoyed that kind of thing. And, would love to see more of that, like representatives from other communities coming on and talking to you guys about their project and comparison and pros and cons of stuff. And I want to extend something of an olive branch to the Litecoin community. I believe a lot of them have their hearts in the right place. Obviously, I believe that Bitcoin Cash has a superior technology and kind of, believe it or not, less historical baggage. But it is a good, I don't know, it feels good. It's a mental win, a win for morale to kind of come up and be right alongside Litecoin again after having been so far behind them. And also from another perspective, there's this concept of the big four in cryptocurrency, stemming from was it Gary Geiser or whoever years ago saying, oh, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, and Bitcoin Cash. I mentioned those because they're not securities, whatever. So this concept, I keep seeing it in more and more places of the big four, like the serious players in the cryptocurrency space, and Bitcoin Cash is one of them. Since the time I saw that start emerging, Bitcoin Cash has been like the bottom in terms of market cap. It would be cool to not be the bottom of the big four. But yeah, and of course, this all ties into what we were talking about earlier about how the higher up on the rankings you get, the more eyeballs just sort of generally drift in your direction. So I was excited to see this. It was a bummer to pass them and then come back down. But it's like,
just accelerate past,
Yeah, it's like, never mind. We'll come back later. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. I remain very optimistic, very bullish about the future. And if the grandiose future that we're envisioning comes to pass, and I expect that it will, probably will continue climbing.
Yes, exactly. So obviously, like usual, price is not everything, but it is important. People take it as a bit of a metric, and it was nice to get one back there. I think maybe it'll be a couple weeks, couple months, who knows? But at some point, BCH will just go on another bit of a tear. We'll go past them. I'm not even going to make a big deal out of it. Now we've done that. We've kind of made that clear to them. And I did a post saying same thing. I think any Litecoiners, please, I would love for you to join the BCH community. Come look into it. The arguments in my mind, obviously, for LTC are very weak. You just have a community that kind of the whole, whether silver to Bitcoin's gold, you're never going to win like that, right? That's joining the Olympics and saying, guys, we're going to be the second best. Like, what do you mean? You're not even going to come fifth if you're aiming to be second best, right? You've got to be shooting to win at least. That has to be your mentality. They don't have that. They have that one Wimble, which they say is great, but everything from my limited technical understanding of what that is, I'm like, this is pretty meh. They put Segwit in their chain and poison pilled it like BTC. It's all just like people who are trying to jump on the bandwagon too late, but the second bandwagon. What?
Yeah, second bandwagon. Yeah, and I feel like I've also had Lightning Network, or I keep saying Lightning instead of Litecoin. Litecoin proponents will come at me with like, oh, well, haven't you heard about the Lightning Network on Litecoin? I'm like, I have, and I feel comfortable claiming that I understand it better than you do. I'm telling you for sure, it's not going to work the way you think it's going to work. Like, so yeah, I believe a lot of them want the same things that we want in terms of like freeing humanity from the tyranny of fiat. But I believe they are misguided in, hooking their buggy to the winning horse, so to speak. Like, come on over to Bitcoin Cash, guys. It's great over here. Come play some tournaments, video game tournaments. You can try it out. Try Bitcoin Cash.
Exactly. I don't see a lot of a Fifth of Gaming or any of these other cool projects on BCH really starting up on LTC. Like their main wallet seems to be Cake Wallet, which is now adding BCH and has a bunch of other coins. Like, where is their Selene wallet? They don't even have it. They didn't even have 3 civil wars like we did, and they still only have like a fraction of the actual cool shit we have. So like, they're just not.
Can it really be a hardened and super cool Bitcoin or crypto community if you haven't had multiple civil wars? I don't think you can. Like,
that's right. Yeah, exactly. What are you even doing? Do you have enough contrarians and anarchists in there? Like, what's going on here, guys? What's going on? Okay, so speaking of that, we now have the third massive W for BCH. Obviously, these last 2 huge W's for BCH. We got a third one, and possibly the biggest and most vindicating. The former CEO of nChain, Christen Ager-Hanssen, has gone public saying that Craig Wright is not Satoshi and using faked court documents along with Calvin Ayre to assist in this entire fraud and scam that basically is Bitcoin SV. So I'm just going to read this tweet that triggered off all of this. There was a ton of other stuff that he's been posting and whatever, but this is the main game. This is what started. So he tweeted here, quote, "I can confirm I have departed from nChain Global as its group CEO with immediate effect after reporting several serious issues to the board of nChain Group, including what I believe is a conspiracy to defraud nChain shareholders orchestrated by a significant shareholder. I also had concerns about the ultimate beneficiary shareholder and the real people behind DW Discovery Fund registered in Cayman. The chairman also took instructions from shadow directors, which I didn't accept. I have also reported that I have found compelling evidence that Dr. Craig Wright has manipulated documents with the aim to deceive the court he is Satoshi. I'm told myself that Dr. Craig Wright is not Satoshi. I'm today myself convinced that Dr. Craig Wright is not Satoshi, and I'm persuaded that he will lose all his legal battles. The board didn't take action, and my job becomes clearly untenable. One of the things I recommended the chairman of the board was to sack Dr. Craig Wright. I feel sorry for all the great people that work in the company, but I don't want to be part of something I clearly don't believe in. Hashtag fake Toshi." And then he has a photo of Calvin and Craig there to sort of rub it in. So for people who are out of the loop and don't know what this is all about, basically when BCH and BSV split, which is now almost 5 years ago, it will be November 18th, I believe, 2018. So coming up to 5 years ago, and as covered in episode 85, the introductory episode, the big contention was over Craig Wright claiming that he was Satoshi and this guy Calvin Ayre, this billionaire guy, backing him. And there's a lot of elements to this, but one of the big things about the BSV community is they love this whole legal battles, trying to sue people to prove that he's Satoshi, because he obviously can't just cryptographically sign because he's a fake. And then they love all this corporate stuff, and we're going to be the big business guys. And I mean, it's all just this huge pile of like lies and scams and not really what cryptocurrency is about at all. But the theory or I'm going to put theory in quotation marks, that all the BSV people would say, oh, this is Satoshi, or we're doing all this great stuff, but everyone would say, no, can't you see that this is all a scam by Craig Wright, where he pretends to be Satoshi? Calvin backs him. They try and sue to get patent rights or something like that over Bitcoin, and then that's how they make their money back. Like, that's the entire grift, right? And everybody said that. This is not like a minority opinion. This was just what everybody said BSV was. But now all the evidence has come out that that's exactly what it was the whole time.
And I think there's even more to it. And my understanding, and again, I pay attention to this at a distance because I've got, other more interesting things to think about. But my understanding is that part of the goal was, okay, we're gonna make this personality cult around Craig Wright being Satoshi. We're gonna, keep the price of Bitcoin SV propped up with that, and whatever other financial support they can get. We're going to make actual code changes to the Bitcoin SV reference client that allow the ability to recover coins that have been, lost or whatever. And then on the other side, you've got like, okay, we need to find some judge somewhere that says, okay, yeah, you win the case, Craig. We officially say that you're Satoshi Nakamoto. Then they can go to the miners of Bitcoin SV and say, legally, you have to run this software. And that's how they can just, okay, we're going to steal Satoshi's coins on this fork of the Bitcoin project. And props to them. Like in a world full of scams and grifts, like this, as far as I know, this is unique. No one has done this particular scam before. So congratulations on uniqueness. But like the whole thing has been patently ridiculous. Like the whole Bitcoin SV era. If I may, I'd love to share a couple of my favorite Craig Wright memories.
Can I just add one more thing before we do that? So, like you're saying, that was the game plan. And there's a step further, which is that the idea was to sue and get the court to approve of essentially a transfer, in quotation marks, of the coins to Craig Wright, who supposedly lost them and supposedly is Satoshi and owns them. So the idea was to get him like the 1 million supposed Satoshi coins over to him on BSV, right? But that's not even the end of the grift. The whole point is to do that it's a precedent that it can be done. And then they were going to try and do that on the far more valuable BTC and presumably also BCH chains. So for this attack to work, they kind of need, it's like one of the ultimate proving grounds of Bitcoin. Like, is there any roundabout way you can get in there? And even if they make this change on BSV so that they can just flip the coins over to Craig's address or whatever, they can't, like that. That's not a backdoor that they can put into the BTC or BCH software, because they've just added a special rule which says if this is these certain coins, just give them to Craig, right? But they can't force that into the BCH software or the BTC software, because the devs are both like, no, fuck off. And even if they did force them to do it, then you would have to get all the nodes and the miners to run it. And so their whole game plan was to get this big legal attack, basically, to make that happen. And so it's what has all come out now is Calvin is trying to be pretending that everything's fine. And that's what these BSV people do every time. They never take an L. Like, they always double down with like, we don't need you anyway. This is all just plan. Exactly. All according to plan. We don't need this scammer, blah, blah, blah. And then, but the idea was, well, if we can force the devs to somehow put in these rules, then they could steal like 1 million BTC, which is, however, hundreds of millions, like billions of dollars.
Substantial, yeah.
And then the plan was that Craig was supposedly, from some of these leaks, was going to give half of it to Calvin. So that's been his whole thing. He's already a billionaire. But in trying to get multiple billions, he's invested like hundreds of millions of dollars in all these lawsuits, and no doubt propping up and buying all these huge bags of BSV that he's going to have to take a huge loss on. Because there's no market. He can't just sell 500,000 BSV. Nobody wants to buy it. There's like a few like confused droids in their echo chamber, and they've been delisted from all the exchanges. For the most part.
And it's more than exchanges. Like, here's a fun fact. So Blockchair, the Block Explorer, has an API that you can send requests to, like, hey, give me the UTXOs from this address, or give me information about this block ID or whatever. All of the responses that today come back from the Blockchair API will give you the information that you requested, but there's also a footnote in the message that comes back that says, hey, by the way, as of November 2022, we do not support Bitcoin SV anymore in any of our API and stuff. And, one of the head guys of Blockchair made a post last year sometime where he was like, hey, the Bitcoin SV blockchain is full of garbage, and also no one cares about it. So obviously they have their internal systems where they're, storing the blockchain and parsing it and making it servable for incoming requests. But they also have stats about, who's requesting information about Bitcoin SV. That's how they make their money, is by selling API keys and giving information to people who are asking for it. And they're like, this is just not worth the effort. Like, we're not making enough money on selling API keys to do all the hassle and overhead of maintaining the hardware, maintain this giant glob of meaningless data. The signal to noise ratio is so low that it's not worth keeping track of. So yeah, like, that was the thing that Bitcoin SVers were going on about. It's like, oh man, got no limit to the blocks, or they can be super big, and there's so much data, and it's future of data storage. No, it isn't. This is not an efficient way to do giant data storage. It's just a giant mess that you've made. But whatever.
Exactly. People just get, and this is why this was all sort of an attack on the BCH community. Is it's like this parody of big blocks. It's like, big blocks can't work.
Yep.
Look at BSV. Like, they tried to upload the fucking entirety of Google Drive onto the blockchain and screwed it up. Like, haha, it doesn't work. But that's not like the case. Like, BCH one day will be doing the blocks and the transaction volumes that BSV is doing, right? That's true. But there's just such a big distinction between, we wrote some scripts and spammed at these ridiculously, like, not even 1 cent. They lowered it to like whatever, 1 Satoshi or whatever, that they could just spam up, and they changed the limit so you can put pictures of Doge in there really easily, which you can do on BCH, yes, but not in the same way, and just uploaded these gigabytes and gigabytes of data with no real organic economy. There's obviously a huge difference between big blocks. Let's say a fifth of gaming pops off and we have 10 million gamers using BCH every day. Well, that would be a completely different scenario to we're just uploading gigabytes and gigabytes of data with our tiny little BSV community, that then the Blockchair people are like, nobody's even using this. The problem is not having a lot of data. The problem is the way that they've done it, and the fact that there's no organic adoption to back it up, really.
Yeah, I appreciate what you said there about it being a parody of big blocks. I wonder about that. Like, this wasn't that long after the what I like to call the Exodus block, when Bitcoin Cash left Bitcoin. It was the next year that all this Bitcoin SV stuff happened, and this was still contentious. Like, okay, well, how big are the blocks supposed to be to function correctly? And this is like, okay, well, let's just make them infinity big, and just see, it doesn't work. It's like, okay, well, that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to scale responsibly and simply, and so let's scale as the technology allows. And yeah, Bitcoin SV.
All right, let's see. Do you have some Craig?
So a couple of Craig memories I wanted to share, and this isn't my personal memories, just things that happened that I chuckled about when they did happen. So again, clown show from the beginning. There was Gavin Andreessen's message like, oh, I had the chance to shake Craig's hand and thank him for inventing Bitcoin, which, looking back, feels really cringy, but what can you do? It's the past. One of the things that Gavin announced in that blog post that he made was like, okay, on this date at this time, Craig Wright is going to publish a signed message with Satoshi's keys. And I was freaking out, like, this is amazing. I can't believe we finally know who Satoshi is. But of course, the day came and Craig flaked out and like shut his site down and like made this really weird apology letter. And it was just, anyway. So that's memory number one. That was my first experience of this Craig Wright guy is kind of strange, and this is weird. But two favorite things happened. Two of my favorite Craig Wright things that happened. at some point along the way, where he's like trying to convince people that he's Satoshi, he said, "Hey, I used to control, I mined these specific blocks." Like he gave actual block IDs from the early Bitcoin days and said, "I mined these. But oops, I can't access the key from whatever ridiculous reason." But not long after that, this message was made public. And there's a website now. It's CraigWrightIsNotSatoshi.com. And what happened was some anonymous person who actually controlled the keys for the blocks that Craig Wright said that he's mined, published this message where he said, "Craig Wright is a liar and a fraud. He's not Satoshi," and there was a couple of other things in his note, but he is not Craig Wright. And to prove that he's not Craig Wright, here is this giant list of addresses with the signature that, using the keys for those blocks, encodes this message. So either Craig Wright is Satoshi and he just called himself publicly a liar and a fraud, or he's not Satoshi and the person who actually controls these blocks, which were mined in 2009, are like, yeah, it's not Satoshi. Now, anyone who understands the mechanics of Bitcoin will understand that for the actual Satoshi, like the Satoshi Nakamoto, it would be trivially easy to prove that you're Satoshi. There are magic numbers that exist that if you have this number, you're Satoshi. Craig Wright can't. It's trivially easy to prove that you're Satoshi, and it's impossible to prove that you are Satoshi if you're not. So that was a fun win, and that site is still up. Everyone can Google it. Everyone can look at it right now. CraigWrightIsNotSatoshi.com. Everyone should check that site out. But this was another of my favorite Craig Wright events. This was a theme that happened. I saw it at least 2 or 3 times, where people would get in arguments with Craig Wright on Twitter about Bitcoin mechanics.
Oh, I love these ones. Yeah.
And they would argue with him, quoting Satoshi. Like, they would make arguments with Satoshi Nakamoto's actual words. And on several occasions, Craig Wright responded to them, "Oh, you're such an idiot. You don't understand Bitcoin. You're so stupid." And one guy was like, I don't know. Are you sure? I have it on good authority that, XYZ, whatever the thing was that he said. And he's like, "No, you're stupid. And whoever that source is, they're also stupid." And it's like, okay, well, here's the link to the Bitcoin talk forums where Satoshi Nakamoto said the thing that I just said to you. It's like, this guy gets dunked on all the time. It's just, I don't know. It's clown show. That's how I would describe the Craig Wright era. And I'm excited to see that it seems to be, if not coming to an end, at least coming down a level. He's no longer the face of this, top 100 crypto. And yeah, we'll see what the fallout is for this departure of this C-suite guy from Enchain. But I will be glad to not see Craig Wright popping up in my feed anymore. Like, we're done with you, man. Like, go find something else to do.
Yes. And so obviously there's a lot of different aspects to this, but the key points really is that this is a huge W for the BCH community. Why? Because everything we said was basically being vindicated for the most part. And then also it's like it worked. We cut out these scammers. We threw them off on their own little orbit. And here we are 5 years later, it's all turned into a disaster. And you had some of the BTC people trying to be like, "Oh, look at this Bcash scam falling apart." It's like, no, you are so out of the loop if you think this has anything to do with BCH. They're now separate, and their disaster is their disaster. BCH completely unaffected. Whatever coins that those BSV people had, well, they must have sold them or decided to hodl them or whatever, because they can't do it anymore. And
Plus one to that, like in my mind, there have been 3 major efforts to capture Bitcoin. The first one we lost. Like, the good guys lost the Blocksize war. Blockstream was able to. Blockstream and their well-funded and very mysterious backers were successful in their first attempt to capture Bitcoin. Bitcoin endured in the Bitcoin Cash project, and since then there have been 2 concerted efforts to take it over again. And this community has become adept at identifying bad actors and ejecting them from the system before they can do serious damage. Craig Wright, I think, was the first big test of that, and we passed. And like you said, vindication. Here we are 5 years down the road, and even his most adamant backers have kind of kicked him to the curb and been like, no, he's a fraud. So yeah, good on the Bitcoin Cash community. Keep your eye out for grifters and stay vigilant. Like until we're the world reserve currency, this is going to keep happening. People will continue trying an assortment of ways to stop this momentum, stop this project. Peer-to-peer electronic cash for the world is a dangerous idea, and powerful people need it to not happen. And so the attacks are going to continue coming. Stay vigilant.
And it needs to be, the thing is, it needs to be like a shoal of fish. That's why my strategy is to educate people as much as we can, because let's say there's either I just lose my mind for some reason, or more likely come under, some kind of pressure and I either have to step back, or maybe I start coming out with all kinds of bullshit and disinformation on this podcast. Well, the important thing is that as many people in the community know the actual fundamentals, how Bitcoin Cash works, they're aligned with the vision, and I could be cut out of it. And the same for any individual person in the community, right? We win at the point where the sort of swarm of BCH adopters has enough people with the correct idea in their mind that they're able to just reconverge onto the same like organic grassroots movement. No matter which, subsection or individuals are sort of either, just come up with some bad ideas on their own or pressured into it somehow. So that's why it's so critical that everybody understands Bitcoin, because if everybody's using Bitcoin Cash on a daily basis, it's very easy to understand which is the real Bitcoin. It's the one that's being used. It's the one that everybody is actually transacting and trading, and you can't come up with some nonsense technical reasons or this cult of personality or anything like that. Like if the community can just eject people out but keep the 99% bulk of it still moving forward, eventually that just becomes a crushing edge. So we're doing well to keep that going. A couple of other things that have just been involved in the disaster here. There's Craig has somehow got a hold of this ex Twitter account at Satoshi, which apparently some other guy registered in 2018, and he's since somehow got control of it. And so he's been tweeting out like different stuff, but then he's getting community noted on every single one of his posts.
Fantastic. Love it.
With the community note saying Craig Wright controls this account. He's a fraud. Here's the links. Check out the information. Calvin is obviously trying to play tough guy act publicly, but he's also been busy deleting tweets and trying to bury the evidence, of course. Stefan Matthews, who is also one of the bigwigs at N-Chain, he's in part of the leaks that Christen Ager-Hanssen has come out with, saying that they're heading into a fucking disaster with this COPA trial in January. So after all these lawsuits, basically, it got to a certain point where Coinbase and like a bunch of the other big crypto companies were like, look, we just have to stop this. We have to put a fucking end to it. So they made this thing called the Crypto Open Patent Alliance, and they've sued Craig Wright to like prove in court that he's not a fraud, so that it's in the record and there's no more of this legal bullshit. So that's in January. I think it's January the 15th or something. So no doubt the general crypto sphere will be very interested in that when it happens. But they're just at like, because this Calvin, he's got a lot of money and he's been able to do this legal bullying tactics, but finally the industry got together and was like, we're still bigger than you, mate, or we certainly are now. So they're just going to put a complete stop to this, and hopefully that will just be the end of the matter. So I'm looking forward to that. But obviously this meltdown has come about as a result of their own lack of confidence that was going to go well, their delusions about that clearly falling apart at last. And then finally, you have the BSV community themselves. What actual organic people are involved are now even further in disarray, as some of them say, no, this is the latest round of 4D chess, which they can endlessly go back to. And then some of them say, like, guys, were we wrong? Like, what are we doing? Or some of them are saying, no, Craig Wright's always been bad for the community. But some people say, no, we need Craig. It's just absolute clown show.
If you don't have Satoshi Nakamoto on your team, like, what have you got left?
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry, Jen, I cut you off.
No worries. There is an email that Stefan Matthews sent to Christian which was originally an email from Calvin to Craig. And there are just a couple lines in this. Jeremy, if you'll give me the time, I'd love to read.
Yes. Yeah, let's hear.
All right. The email says, as I sit here, I'm on a beach in southern Spain. I have a good life. I have every intention of keeping it this way. Right now, the only negative in my life is your litigation disaster and getting old, but that one I cannot fix. I will accept your explanation that you did not actually threaten me, so the following is the situation we find ourselves in. This is where it gets so fun. I've been operating under the assumption that you and Ramona have the keys and that you're simply pretending not to have them as part of some strategy that you've trapped yourself in. But now that we're looking at a situation where continuing to deny you have them ruins your life and damages your supporters, I'm forced to make a tough decision. It no longer matters if you have the keys or not, as it is my opinion based on the advice from Zafar and others that you cannot win the COPA trial if you do not sign at Harvard, so I have no choice in what I have to do. This, of course, will also mean that you lose all other cases other than maybe the token theft case, but to me, losing COPA even puts this at risk. As COPA will set precedent that you are not Satoshi in law. All IP other than N-chain patents will disappear. This means that you're not going to be able to get a court to declare that you own any tokens either. We have also verified that there is no complete paper trail evidencing the trust owning any tokens. This after nearly a year of Zurich reviewing all the evidence you have. This means you cannot repay me the money you owe me for all the litigation to date. This means every cent spent on your cases is me pissing away my kids' inheritance. If you have the keys, your best play is to now use them. Going to jail for perjury, but losing the entire world accepting you are a flawed Satoshi is infinitely better than losing this case and only being considered likely to be flawed Satoshi after your death by historians, as no other realistic person is ever found. I'm so excited just reading this. Give me a second.
This is rough. Oh my gosh.
However, it's my opinion that once the world accepts you are a flawed Satoshi, everything changes and all of this just goes away. I can make it all go away, in fact. There is zero reason to continue to pretend you do not have the keys if you really have them. Side bonus is that using the keys in this way, combined with verdict in Florida, will likely be an accepted replacement for proper paperwork for financial institutions. The best paragraph. So either you are a moron for intentionally losing this case, or you're a moron for actually not having the keys. Either way, I'm not following you over the cliff. And I actually have concerns with Stefan even being a witness, as I know what they will do to him for this. My opinion in having watched this play out over the years is that it's very clear you are hopelessly bad at litigation. The, in all caps, only reason you won in Florida is the other side got greedy and tried to both steal your shit and ruin your reputation. And this was conflicting agendas and so confused the jury. The other side will not be making this mistake in London. To me, I am doing you and your supporters a favor. I will cover this in CG, CoinGeek, as us still being sure you are Satoshi, even as it's clear that you were run over by the combined forces of Silicon Valley, US payment companies, and the entire crypto world. We will say that we believe you did forge some documents to replace ones you destroyed earlier to try and pretend you were not Satoshi. We will say this because your Asperger's makes you not think and act like an adult. You are like a super smart teenager. This is not how this would play out in the media if we spend toe-to-toe with COPA and they still win, which is what is most likely, in addition to the massive waste of my kids' wealth. Last section of the email. It's clear that once you lose, you will need me more than ever. I will be the only one standing between your family and the soup kitchen. At least at the moment, depending on how self-destructive you get, I am not stopping my funding of the association, the ecosystem, or N-Chain and you. In fact, this decision makes funding them a lot easier for me. From my perspective, this decision improves everything now. Your continuing to accept this funding is your acceptance that our existing deal is still valid, and you agree with me that my stopping funding a lost cause is not a violation on my side. You are further agreeing that you personally will pay me back for all the money I have spent on your project, even if the trust never gets any tokens. I do not believe this case is fundable in any other way. I do not believe you will even be able to get a competent law firm to work with you on this, as I expect all the lawyers will bail out once they know I am out. The analysis above will be done by everyone, and they are coming to the same conclusion. However, I will support any new funding options you can find if this is your wish. Just send the plan to Elaine and I. I do not expect this to happen, however, as you've made yourself just too toxic for this, and your enemies have piled on in branding you as such. They are ever so gleeful with every round you pinch off into your own feet. As I said above, I believe what I'm doing is actually tough love. It's definitely not meant to hurt you, and it will actually help you looking at this from where I'm sitting. The lawyers all dropping you because you ran out of funding is the best case scenario that I can see if you cannot do a Harvard signing. By the way, you lost both contempt of court cases. Christian was the one that saved you, and you're acting like you're too selfish and ignorant to even understand this. I don't believe you have even thanked anyone. Both of these contempts would have been used against you in all other cases. See.
Absolutely a total disaster. And here we're getting a look into the mind of a billionaire who has been strung along and fooled by a con man for over 5 years. And as everyone predicted, there was going to be a day where he sort of figured it out. And he hasn't even got all the way there. He's still trying to piece together what.
You can still sign at Harvard, Satoshi. Yeah, still do it.
He's still on the hook. He's still hoping for it not to be the case that he was conned, but he has been. And
I think
when he talks about pulling the funding out of the ecosystem, it's all going to go poof. They have the BSV story it's the same as the BCH story in that way. They say there's an organic community, there's all these different projects. We say it's not all funded by Roger Ver, which obviously it isn't, and it's actually legit. And then they say it's not all funded by Calvin Air, but maybe if Calvin stops funding it, we're going to find out, right?
I think it's so hilarious just that. So you're either a moron for this stupid thing or you're a moron for this stupid thing.
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah.
He's just a moron. One final thing is the BSV community, to their credit, have actually been coming up with some innovative stuff with HODL Locker, where they've been locking their coins to back social media posts, basically like Twitter, except you could lock your coins to boost up your post in the rank, which is actually a genius idea. I love this idea, and it would be awesome if we had a BCH version. I even looked into making a quick prototype, but I haven't got the time and wherewithal to get that done at the moment. But that's a genius idea, and I'm looking at that closely because that is actually the first good idea I think I've seen out of BSV ever. So that, just shout out to them for that. They're working there, but I don't know if it's going to be enough to hold up in the tidal wave of shit that is coming their way. Let me also just check the price. They actually had their price pumped on this news.
It went up 30% when all this blew up. Which I wasn't expecting that, but yeah,
I wasn't expecting that either. It went from $32. It was over $40, but now it's back to $34. And Christen Ager-Hanssen was posting on Twitter oh, look, Calvin's pumped it up. So maybe Calvin was quick, we're in a PR shitstorm. Let's just throw in another 5 mil on the one exchange that accepts BSV and give the community some reason for hope. But at the end of the day, it's just throwing good money after bad. So a tough one there. And we have our meme of the week, Kurt Walker Jr. I've labeled this "Success has many fathers, failure is an orphan." Classic saying. It's from Kurt Walker Jr. on one of his streams recently, saying, "I do not officially represent CoinGeek. I don't work for CoinGeek." But then on the little graphic on the stream, it says Kurt Walker Jr., Chief Bitcoin Historian, CoinGeek. And the BTC guy has just done the red arrows highlighting how ridiculous this conflict, this contradiction is. And they put a nice red clown nose on Kurt. So it's just, once the rats are trying to scurry off the ship, everyone's trying to say, no. And you can watch this video. He says in it well, technically, I'm not an employee. I'm just a contractor. I just do the stream and I get paid for that. And it's mate, you have been hard shilling BSV, Craig, everything about that for 5 years. If you can't see that this is an L, well, the rest of the world can. So good luck to you with that. Okay. Community comment of the week. In more positive news, comes from Don Alt at Crypto Don Alt, who made a post. They have about 325 or 1,000 X followers, and they posted a chart. They're obviously one of these crypto, like we've had Crypto Calio and these various ones. They posted one saying, "What do you do when the whole the whole crypto ecosystem is down except BCH?" And then the answer was you turn into a BCH maxi, of course, and the price chart of the BCH thing pumping up recently. And then somebody asked, Toshi_BTC asked, "You bought?" And Donald says, "How could I not buy one Bitcoin for just 0.008 BTC? Question mark. And I saw this and I quote tweeted it. I think this is amazing. This is a hugely bullish sign for BCH. Why? Because, okay, maybe he's joking, right? But what this shows is that the general crypto scene have got the message that in the BTC version of events, BTC is the one true chain. Everything else is a scam fork. But in the BCH narrative, BCH is the real Bitcoin. That's what we've been saying this whole time. And BTC is the scam fork. And this guy understands that enough to make this joke, and also expects his audience to understand that enough to get the joke. So even though it's been a lot of like relentlessly fighting an avalanche of bullshit, BCH is the real Bitcoin. People get it. They don't agree with it yet. That will happen once the price pumps, once we get more hash rate and the price flips. But they understand. There's a very big difference between not understanding and understanding but not agreeing. And we're at that stage. So I was so thrilled to see this. What do you think?
Yeah, 100%. Like, you know, I said this earlier, like there's no bad publicity. Like, even if this guy is just trolling or joking, like his attention, his eyeballs are on Bitcoin Cash, and all of the people that saw this tweet is on Bitcoin Cash. And maybe this is news to them. Like, whoa, Bitcoin Cash is up 115% in the last 12 months. Like, thought it was dead. Let me look into that some more. Like, yeah, I was happy to see this as well.
Great stuff. BCH is the real Bitcoin. It's getting at just where you just said one Bitcoin for just 0.008 BTC. That's the exact point. You know, the BTC people are always saying, "Oh, I dumped your scam coins at 0.1 and I got real Bitcoin." But it's like, no, it's actually going to be the other way, especially as BCH climbs up the ranks, and the price does not determine the truth, but to many people it will be convincing nevertheless, and especially these random crypto Twitter accounts. So great to see that. Okay, we got a message to the community. I'm sure you know the drill.
Yes.
What does the Bitcoin Cash community need to hear?
Well, I want to first restate what I was saying earlier about anyone in the space, anywhere in the world can do things to contribute. So even if you're not a programmer, like there are things that you can do to kind of further this message, whether it's just talking to your friends, introducing them. Let me send you $5 of Bitcoin Cash and we can send it back and forth and you can see how it works. Do that. Keep hustling. It's like, you know, nothing is going to happen unless someone like, hey, this needs to be done. I'm gonna do it. I'm not gonna wait for anyone else to do it. I'm gonna do it myself. So that's message number one. Message number two is, hey, if you are hearing my voice and you are interested in video games, I would be delighted to have you come help us with the public beta test of A Fifth of Gaming. It's a young project. It's an MVP. So there's lots of new features that need to be added, lots of bugs to be ironed out. But the way we're going to find those things is if we have people come and play with us. So message number three is, if you are a software engineer, please, again, go to developers.cash. Great resource. I would be delighted if you would try out the BitcoinCashClient. This is a open source NuGet library, so you can download and install it directly from Visual Studio. I've got a tutorial on YouTube. It's 10 minutes long, step by step, from a blank .NET console application. From that, within a few minutes, you're sending Bitcoin Cash, broadcasting to the actual Bitcoin Cash network. So try that out. Let me know if you have any problems with any trouble, and yeah, keep on grinding. We'll get there.
All right, I love that, the nice triple dip.
Yeah,
message to the community.
Yeah, who knows when I'll be back? I gotta send a message while I got a chance.
Well deserved, mate. All right, we got supporter appreciation, donators. Shout out to you, always the best, our patrons, Ricky and HP, our sponsor, General Protocols. Check out bchbull.com, and the Flip Starter contributors, Bitcoin Jason. Check out Townsville for a Bitcoin Cash holiday, Shadow of Harbinger, Molecular, Emergent Reasons, Erdogan Talk, and Majamalu Marcelo. So thank you for everybody for listening. The start guide, FAQs, links are at www.bitcoincashpodcast.com. If this is your first time listening to the show, check out episode 85. That will give you all the context and background. From there, you can listen to any other episodes, but you kind of need those fundamentals to really understand what any of this is all about. And you can also go on bitcoincashpodcast.com/code. It's linked in the top, and we've got loads of dev resources there, including developers.cash. But you can find lots of other stuff, including Telegram links and where to find more and all of that stuff as well. Too. So shout outs, David. Who do you want to give a shout out to?
Yes, small handful of shout outs. Shout out number one goes out to my wonderful fiance, Emily, who's super great just by default, but also is very supportive of me even in all my Bitcoin Cash and video game nonsense. She's always got a smile and a friendly nod while I'm going on about it. So shout out to you, Emily. I love you. Shout out number two to my old friends Matt and Josh, who have saw what I was doing with the Fifth of Gaming and were so enthusiastic about it that they've actually joined the dev team. So the team size has gone from 1 to 3, and it's all volunteer work at this point. So really appreciate their work and their contribution. Shout out to Mike and Johan at Digital to DNA. They were the corporate sponsors of Fifth of Gaming, and shout out to them. Thank you for believing in me, believing in this project. And again, you guys are awesome bosses. I love working for you. Anyone in the audience in the healthcare space, check out digitaltodna.com. And finally, last one, Jeremy and Jet, shout out to you guys. I know that you work really hard on this podcast, and I believe that this podcast is an important fixture in the Bitcoin Cash space. So I know you hear it from time to time. I just want to add my voice to the chorus. Thank you for the work that you guys do, and please keep it up. So those are my 4 shout outs. It has been an absolute delight to be on this show with you guys. Thank you for the invitation, and it's been a real pleasure.
Yeah, do you have any shout outs?
I have 2 this time, making up for some of my no shout out episodes. So the first one is to the viewers. I was looking at our YouTube analytics recently, and I saw that people were going back and watching the old episodes. And I feel like that's kind of unheard of for YouTube, like especially for something that's kind of niche. This isn't a tutorial of some kind. Like people aren't getting, I guess, tangible utility. It's just kind of information that helps them later. And to see, I think you're right, Jeremy, that it was referencing those older videos in the newer videos, and maybe newer viewers going back and being like, oh, let's catch up. Let's get some of the history here. So it was nice to see those things still have value and staying power, and that people appreciate them. And yeah, even considering the quality at the time was much harder, I guess, to sit through a full 2 hours than it is now. And then the second one is, well, I guess this one's a joint shout out. Also to the viewers that are watching right now. It's like Canadian Thanksgiving coming up. So if you spent the time to hop on the stream, cool, we appreciate that. And then I had 2 friends over last night, Colin and Nikki, and we did a great big feast, and I'm super appreciative. So shout out to them.
Brilliant. And my shout out goes to Alex, Sam, and also Andrea, if she happens to be listening, who I recently was showing Selene Wallet and telling them about the podcast, and they, we're starting listening and everything like that. And I was talking to Alex about it, and he said to me that he had just listened to the episodes back to episode number 80. So he had just binged through all those most recent episodes. And so in the space of about a week and a half or 2 weeks between when I told him about this and when I then saw him next and asked him about it, I just saw that he had got it. He'd clicked. I've never seen it happen that fast. To obviously having tried it out with Selene Wallet and then listening to all those episodes of the show, and like he's there. Bitcoin Cash historically has had such a hard time attracting people to the community and building up momentum because there's so much backstory. You got to know all the different forks. You got to go all the different what happened. You got to know all the technical details. You got to know why is this different to all the rest of the nonsense in cryptocurrency. You got to believe it can work. You got to understand why the price crashed and what the community is doing to fix that, and all the drama and lies and everything like that. I've never seen anybody so fast down the rabbit hole from just listening to this show. And like you're saying, we have that backlog now, and people can just listen back to it. And if you listen to 10 episodes of this show coming in with very little context, as long as one of them's the episode 85 and then just a bunch of others, you're already just jumped the queue on crypto. Like the rest of crypto, all the nonsense and lies, you'd be so much better prepared for it from that point on. So that was just amazing for me to see, because when I talk to people about the show, I don't have that context. I don't know. Like sometimes I talk to people about it, they've listened to one episode. Sometimes they've listened to every single one, and it's opaque from my point of view. And so that was just amazing to see. And it just proves to me that as the show grows, or again, if we can hit a kind of viral moment, like with a Fifth of Gaming or anything, then the acceleration in horsepower of the community will be just overwhelming. Because if you get thousands or tens of thousands of people having that same experience where they find the podcast and they just listen to a bunch of episodes and they've got it, that at scale will just be crushing to every other cryptocurrency. So it was amazing to see, and very glad to be transacting with you in BCH these days.
It goes back to what I was saying about the importance of what you guys are doing here. Like your FAQ and your library of past episodes are an extremely valuable artifact in the Bitcoin Cash space. So good on you guys. I love to hear stories of little wins like that, where like here's a specific instance of a person benefiting directly from that. And yeah, keep up the good work, guys. You're awesome.
Been amazing. All right, thank you everybody for listening. Until next time.
So I started realizing that if you can just find strength just a little bit longer, you will have a crew of people following you along the way.
And that is another thing that no one can ever teach you. Because you're going to have to learn that on your own. You're going to have to figure out how to pull that energy out of your mind on your own. There's no book you can read that all of a sudden I have it. I've got the technique now. I know how to do it.
Yeah.
No, it's a grind that you have to start and finish